be.
All right, everybody, welcome. Sorry about the technical difficulties. We had a launch that went wrong, so I apologize. But let's welcome our guest here.
Yay.
First of all, we have Fran from Real Talk Bougie.
Hey,
If you want
good
to introduce
morning.
yourself, Fran, and yep.
Hey, good morning, guys. Well, good morning here. Good evening to you, Jody, over there in Australia. Good morning. Good morning. So, I'm Fran or Francoise with Real Talk Bougie. I have a YouTube channel, and we discuss a lot of true crime. So yeah, we discuss a lot of true crime cases. I love to get into the documents and
Yeah.
receipts and all of those things. So yeah, thank you for
Deep
having
dives.
me today, guys. I appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Absolutely. Thank you for coming on, and thank you for the discussion we're going to be having. So I apologize again for all of the technical difficulties there.
Sorry.
It's just unfortunately one of the downsides to when we're connecting from across the world, and we have all sorts of things going on, and we had a little miscommunication between our software and YouTube. So, but today we've got a case that is one that is, I know, garnering a lot of interest across the country, across the world, and it's the Naziah Harris case, otherwise known as the Jarvis Butts case. If we're talking about who's charged, Naziah Harris is a young child who went missing in 2024, January of 2024, and has still not been found today. Her a man named Jarvis Butts was charged, and we're kind of throw this up here. This is the initial. Give me a moment here. Let me share this. So this was the add the scene. This was the press release of the when the charges were issued for Jarvis Butts. He was charged. This came out back in September, and he was charged for her death. And he was then bound over for a preliminary hearing, which began in November. And when everything kind of took off, it was in January when a majority of the preliminary hearing was aired. Now, the charges he's facing are first degree premeditated unaliving. He faces life in prison. He also faces child SA activity, which is a maximum of 20 years, criminal SA conduct in the second degree with a person under the age of 13, and the defendant's 17 years or older, and that faces a maximum of 15 years. Now,
is Detroit a death penalty state?
I am not certain. I don't believe they are. I believe I looked that up a little bit ago, and I don't believe.
I think it's a no.
They are.
I don't think Michigan.
I think that's a no. I think life is what their maximum is, because if honestly, this is the type of case that if there was any type, it would have absolutely been a death penalty case. Yeah. So that's the breakdown of the case. Now, I got involved in the case because, as you know, what I do, obviously, as many of you know who are out there who follow my channel, we get into all the cases that are being covered out there, and I'll cover cases, try to get them as early as I can. I got this case early, just following it from Detroit News 2, started covering it, and there wasn't a lot of people covering it at that time.
Scripts and scraps everywhere.
And then all of a sudden, it just exploded, and it was like all this interest in the case. And of course, when I started watching it, I couldn't believe my eyes and ears of what I was hearing and seeing. And it was also hindered too. I think some of the lack of coverage was hindered because Detroit News 2 didn't even cover the first part of the hearing with the two most important witnesses. And that was the grandmother was the adopted mother of Naziah Harris, and the aunt who was the significant other of the man that was sitting there accused of unaliving this child. And that wasn't even aired. That was aired on a different channel.
Yeah.
And it's been kind of difficult. It was difficult for a while for people to get all the information. Now, all of that's out. So, like I said, as the preliminary hearing progressed and we heard the messages and we heard the details of these people being okay with a missing child for 24 hours,
Yeah.
sleeping in their bed, fine. Hey, no problem at all. And even acknowledged it's the first time she's ever gone missing. We learned about the school where she's doubled over in pain and the school did nothing. And then we've got all these adults that were around the accused who saw him with her and were not concerned. And then suddenly she's never heard.
Despite knowing his status.
Yep. Well, she's never heard from again.
Mm-hmm.
And then we get to the point to where he's charged. So I think all of that was some shocking, I think shocked a lot of people and brought a lot of attention to the case.
She's
So
been let down by so many people.
yes. So Bougie, how did you get involved? How did you find the case? What was your
I
starting point?
I feel like it's hard to remember. I feel like it showed up in my timeline like a lot of stuff because I mean I definitely I have a true crime feed because I do follow a lot of cases. I'm Law and Crime, Court TV, just pretty much everybody who discusses true crime and interesting cases. So I feel like the preliminary exam was in my feed, but I really didn't know what was going on with Jarvis Butts or anything like that. And I just happened to click on it or maybe I saw a news story. But it was in my feed. I mean, just, YouTube kind of making, the algorithm being the
Yeah.
algorithm and sending me things that it thinks I might be interested, and then me having the awareness that the algorithm knows me better and I need to click on this. So I found it through my feed and then just my curious nature. I feel like what makes the story so interesting because there are a lot of kids that go missing. There's a lot of offenders out here who are up to absolutely no good. I think what has captivated a lot of people was the sheer volume of what's been going on. The Jarvis and his background, the volume of kids, the volume of women, the volume of complicitness, the volume of missed opportunities. It was like voluminous of so many different
Agreed.
areas, not even just the fails, the missteps, but just like the twins, the mother, the this, the that. It's so complex. It's unfortunate for all the other cases, but because this case is so complex and so vast, every person you talk to is interested in it for another reason. The baby
Yeah.
moms, the amount of
Yeah.
kids, the CPS, the who done it, the where is she, all there's so many aspects to this case. You can't, it's ripe for this a social media curiosity. So I feel like that's why it's kind of has captured a lot of people.
Absolutely. I think, and like you touched on, I think some of there are so many components to this case because you're talking about failures across the community, like the judge said. And I thought the judge in the preliminary hearing really, really, really knocked it out of the park as far as her assessment of things and what she, um, how she couched it and saying that the community failed this young lady. And
Mhm.
there were a lot of people that knew a lot of things. And I think what's come out now is that some of these things were just accepted. Like
Yeah.
the things that we're finding shocking, other people in the community, for whatever the reason, weren't finding these things shocking. And that is a concern. Why is that?
Absolutely.
Why are we not, why were people not stopping and pausing and saying, what's going on here? Why is this older man, running around with this young lady, and why
Who's on the known register?
Well, here's what stands out to me, and I don't know if this stands out to anybody else, but it stands out to me in the sense that why did the aunt and the grandmother not think to contact Jarvis, who was a known person that she would have been around? They knew she was around them. They knew that the shop was a place she would go and clean at and do things. So it would make you think that if my child goes missing, a normal response is to go down your Rolodex of people that says, "Hey, these are the people she could be with."
But
The
Shannon
fact,
did call Jarvis, didn't she? She texted him. She did text
no,
him.
not that day. That was the next day. That was
Okay.
the next day. She never contacted him that day, and in fact, that was what the that was the defense attorney who said, "Well, why didn't you contact me? Oh, why didn't you?" She just said she at that point it wasn't significant. Now the next day she did
When
when
she
what?
texted him? I thought that was
Yes.
weird that she texted him. It's like, "You've got 5 kids with this guy. Why are
Yep.
we texting?" But later we find out Jarvis doesn't pick up his phone because he says people are harassing him. All of his
No, he's
women.
just got 20 women trying to contact him at
Right,
once.
his women are
He's
calling
juggling.
him constantly, so
Yeah.
he doesn't answer the phone.
Yeah, I think he was juggling
Oh, for
quite a
sure.
few ladies on the
Uh-huh.
on the side there with everything. Like I said, he had a pretty interesting situation going on for himself because he had quite a few love interests that all ended up in the courtroom during this preliminary hearing. That were
I don't know
all
why.
in one. Well, again, like I said, that's the interesting part about this case is just the I guess these people they knew what his background was because he had a
Yes.
background of
Yes.
messing around with children
But
and
what
they
gets
didn't
me
care
is you
and they were
you
having
meet
kids with him
you
and
meet someone.
becoming his fiance.
I'm sorry, honey. I'm on the sex register. Sure, no worries. Let's have 5 kids,
Yep.
and go and take this one down to the shop by yourself. No worries. What?
Yep.
It's
I mean, it really made no sense when you sat and listened to what some of these people said on why they would have thought that it was okay for him to be around
yeah.
children or to be um, having children at his shop. I mean, that's what's interesting to me. Why were kids allowed around him when he had these
Yes.
past charges,
Yes.
which should have precluded him from that? And and where was the authorities? I mean, I don't know. I haven't been able to confirm if anybody was looking into that, but they should have been because he shouldn't have had the kids down near his shop. Normally, if you have
Absolutely.
past charges like that, you don't get to have kids near your shop.
I
Um,
I think there was something about him not necessarily registering properly with the offender site. Um, I I don't have all the details on that, but it seems like, you get out of prison and you're required to check in and you're required to register. I don't know that either that happened or it wasn't happening on a consistent basis and or he fell off the registry once it was noticed. Like, I think
But even so,
there
Shannon
was a
knew.
gap somewhere.
Yeah. Even if he wasn't on that though, the Shannon, the aunt, knew.
Well,
So
I think
you,
there's some complicitness there. I think there was some turning a blind eye, and I think that under Annette's uh, household in terms of her and her kids, I think there's a culture of secrecy and oh, I didn't realize I didn't know I was going to do that. Sorry. So I think there's a lot of secrecy and I think that there was a lot of there's a lot of abuse. I
do you think
mean,
it's a cultural thing to
no,
keep
I'm saying under
quiet,
Annette's
or
roof,
okay?
the culture that she promotes, not the
Uh-huh.
culture of the whatever. I'm
Yep.
just talking about she promoted a Annette allegedly was abused as a child.
Uh-huh.
Her kids were abused in various different ways. I think that that's normal for them, even though that's not normal for most
Yeah.
normal people to live in abuse, dysfunction, assaults, and known predators in the mist.
Yeah.
One of Annette's brothers is a convicted predator as well. So at the end of the day, I this is normal for Annette,
Them.
her kids, and some of the people that they operated around. I think some of the family who's been vilified for not doing enough, they didn't know that they weren't doing. I think that when Jernell, Annette's sister,
Mhm.
reported to CPS, I
The April
think
the year
that
before.
she thought that they were just as disgusted as she was, to later find out that they were not. They were turning a blind eye. They were
Mhm.
complicit with Jarvis, and even though even though the other family, Jernell and all the other girls, Kawana and Roxy and Kenya, they were all like, "What's going on here?" I don't think they realized that Annette was as complicit as she was, and her daughters were kind of like, "Well, he's paid his debt. It's okay. You know what I'm saying? So
Hmm. Well, it's just the fact though that it's like if he's got a propensity to do those things, why would they? They should never have been okay with it. I think it's
No.
just very interesting
uh,
that they just overlooked it.
well, they may have been raised by Jernell stated that Annette came to live with them when she was 11 years old. So
Oh, okay.
what was going on? So they have the same Jernell and Annette have the same father, not the same mother. What was going on with Jernell's mother that
Hmm.
she had to be taken from? No, what was going on with Annette's mother that Annette needed to be taken from by her father to the grandmother's house. So that's how Jernell and Annette got together. They had different mothers,
Hmm.
same father. The father took Annette from her mother's house and brought her to the grandmother, I guess, who helped raise these girls. What was going on with with Annette's mother? So there
Hmm.
could just be generation after generation of abuse where not to
Yeah.
say not to give an excuse, but for our normal is not, what I mean, everyone's
Right.
normal is different.
Well, that was my understanding was that from listening to different creators and digging into some of the aspects of the cases that there is supposedly it's a generational history within that family of abuse that all these people it was just moving up and that this kind of just got exposed. They weren't expecting it because there's also a video of Naziah that's out there of her with a guy who is a known predator, and she
That's
was
the
with him.
uncle. That's Annette.
Yeah,
That's Annette's brother.
that's Annette's
Oh.
brother. Okay, that's who that
Mhm.
is.
Eric.
And
Eric Gamble, I think, or something like that.
yes, that's it. Yep, that's
Mhm.
the name. And so it kind of just demonstrates that there was things that were going on within that family that it's just they're it's just part of what they were used to, and it was just all part of life.
And
And then
maybe
again,
Jernell wasn't. And I think her assumption was, well, I called CPS. Oh, obviously, they're going to cooperate because who's
right,
not for the betterment of the kids and the safety of the kids, only to find out they're covering up.
right,
So I think that they were kind of being gaslit in a way to feel like, you know, when they reported things, something would happen. But when the authorities would get there, they had stories, they had excuses, they had, well, he doesn't stay here. He only comes to the driveway. That is their father. He's low risk, but whatever they were saying wasn't matching up. You know what I mean?
hmm,
So I think
How old
unfortunately,
was? Do we know how old Naziah was when she went to when she was adopted by the grandmother?
I don't. I think she was very
No,
young. So let's say what? So maybe
she
six or
was failed
7 years
on a
before.
lot of levels.
So maybe she was 6, 7, something like that. But
yeah, she was adopted by the grandmother in 2018. I
mhm.
believe was part of the testimony record. So I guess this happened in 2024, and Naziah was what 12. So yeah, she would have been 6 years old when she was adopted.
But I
Um,
also think it's possible just because she was 6 or 7 when she was adopted, how long was the process leading up to the
Yeah,
adoption? We know that takes a while.
yep,
Her mom could have dropped her off at 6 months old. She
yeah,
wasn't,
but the
wanted.
formal adoption started then.
Right. She could have been
Mhm.
taking care of her since birth.
yep, yep. Well, but I believe in her testimony that was kind of what she alluded to was that she had always kind of taken care of her, and then they kind of. I think Naziah officially moved in with her when she was like 18, and the adoption went through. But again, there's also been an insinuation from many people that said that where she was living, I guess it was not. There were multiple places that over the years they lived, and she would go, and they ended up where they ended up at when she passed away because of um, issues at another place they were living. I'd heard something about that there was potential that there were
Who
problems
who
there, and they
passed
were.
away?
What's that? No, Naziah
Who?
passed away.
Oh,
No, I
sorry. Yep.
said where she was living when
Mm.
she, or maybe where she disappeared because we, we
Yep.
we
Yep.
still don't know for certain. But when she disappeared, and now I believe it's been proven pretty well, and the court's adopting the fact that she's um, no longer with us, but that there were issues leading up to. In other words, Annette was not completely truthful about where everybody was staying, and I think Bougie, you were talking
Yeah.
about
Yep.
earlier there was there was probably may have been more kids in that house
I
than
think
what was.
so. she couldn't get her math together. I mean,
Yeah.
someone who makes like, this is my assumption because I don't know how she makes all her money. My
Mhm.
assumption is she is someone who everyone in that household has a price tag on. So everybody is accounted for. Everybody is a profit center or a cost center. Everyone's bringing in a check, and
Mhm.
everyone's bringing in
Madam.
something. So whether it's these kids are disturbed and they're getting SSI checks, or they have some sort of disability. You've got foster kids, you've got adopted kids. Everybody is getting some sort of a government check. There's some sort of assistance involved. Shannon has 5 kids with someone who's been in prison. We don't know if these kids have any challenges or not. Shannon doesn't appear to work, so there's probably Medicaid involved. There could be some government assistance. There could be Section 8 dollars coming. There can be food stamps, cash. I mean, no,
You don't think she
nobody's
was farming
working.
them out, do you?
No, I didn't know. I
No.
don't, I know nothing about that.
Mm.
All I'm saying is that through the government assistance
There's
programs,
lots of.
I think they were clearing enough for not a lap of luxury lifestyle, but they were clearing enough to not have to go to work, to
Mhm.
have food and housing paid for, and you know what I mean, and have a car and gas and food in their refrigerator. So I don't know anything about anything else like that. All I'm saying is Annette was basically running I mean, it was almost like I don't want to say a bed and breakfast, but she's got a situation where she's being paid to mind children,
Mhm.
and
Or not
troubled
mind
children at
them.
that. Children who are either rejected or have medical issues, whatever the case
Mhm.
might be, whatever, either foster care systems, SSI, rejected by their parents, like Nazaya's mom gave her up. The father was already married with kids. This was not the best situation for any of the kids under that roof, because I think Annette was clearing a check for all the kids. I'm sure Shannon, whatever monies that Shannon gets, I'm sure Shannon has to pay her mother for housing,
Oh, for
food,
sure.
all of
Yep.
those things.
Yep.
But back to Annette not being clear on, how do you not know how many kids live in your house? You've got 5 kids from your daughter. You've got 2 foster kids. You've got 2 adopted kids. You've got Nazaya and Vari. And I don't know how many other kids they had. I mean, she may have had more kids than that, but that's 11 kids right there. So for her to say she only had 6 kids, what about the other 5? Because Shannon lives with you.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So is Bari the different father? Yeah.
I don't know.
Uh,
I would assume so, because
yeah, because he had an affair with
Mervyn
Kenyatta, didn't
seemed
he?
to claim Nazaya, the association with the brother. I don't know. I'm assuming no, but I don't. We don't. No one's. Maybe he's answered that in it, if he knows who his father is. I don't know.
No, I just that was where I read somewhere that he had an affair with Kenyatta, and that's how Isaiah was conceived. I just didn't know how Bari fit into it because it's,
Well, we
as you
know
said,
that's
there's
the
bits and
brother.
pieces everywhere.
Yeah, I guess the assumption is they have different fathers.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and he's older.
he's the older brother.
Yeah.
I
Did
think
he
he's
didn't get up and
18 now.
testify at all? Did he?
Pardon?
He didn't get up at the hearing, did he?
No, I don't think
No.
I'm not going to say he doesn't know enough. I mean, they could be reserving him for for the actual trial, um, because I guess the specific goal was to um get the testimony out that he was worthy of a unalive charge. So
Right. Well,
I
well,
don't know if Vari had any information to be able to contribute to that goal.
Well, the thing is this is in a preliminary hearing, and I think I was talking about this off air. In the preliminary hearing, you're not the state wants to put up as little of their case as possible because they
Right,
don't want to disclose what's going
All their
what
cards.
it's all going to be. So
right,
the only reason why this took 4 days was because they didn't have a body, and there was
right,
extra hoops they had to jump through to establish that she was passed away because the defense was going to say that there's no proof she's dead. Therefore, they
right,
can't bound him over on the charges. So, yeah, we definitely didn't even touch the surface probably with the witnesses that they
right,
could
Yeah.
possibly bring in. But then the question becomes, do they even need to bring him in? Because they don't have to answer this question, because the only question is did he is there enough evidence to support that he did this? And with the fact that they have eyewitnesses placing him with her before the last known time that she ever was seen again, and Cordell leaves them at the shop, and then you've got his cell phone data tracking him, not going back to her grandmother's house, but going about his business that evening, picking up the car, going to the hotel, going down by the Rouge River the next day, and they
Seeing
track him.
two baby mamas.
Well, they track him with enough to say that he was with her and she's gone now. And then they find her clothes, which they tied to the video. And on the clothes, there's DNA and blood that suggests that something happened. I mean, that's circumstantial evidence, which is as strong as direct evidence when it comes to trial, that says he's the one that did this. And I don't think a jury would have a problem. And then you put in the messages that says, okay,
Yeah.
there's a potential pregnancy that he's trying to cover up. He's about to go to jail. I mean, I think we have a very strong picture that doesn't even need any of these other things coming in, because they would be distractions. On top of that, the other thing that I think that everyone has to understand is when this goes to trial, certain things are not going to be allowed to come in, because they're not. His defense is not going to allow him to be tried on the inappropriate behavior with kids that he's got all around him. They're going to separate that out
Well,
because
they said they're not contesting that. They already said they're like, we're not
Yeah, they
contesting
can't.
that.
They
well,
So
can't prove it.
he may. Is he going to plead guilty to that? Is that what?
I don't know, but if you go back to the day that Cordell testified in November and they were
Mhm.
reading the charges, or they were going to discuss certain things, his public defender stated we're not contesting that.
Okay.
So I'm not sure if he's pleading guilty to that, or I'm not sure. I guess I want to hear how it
Yeah,
converts
I
over
remember something like
to,
that too, because the
yeah.
it was
They said he
overwhelming.
wasn't
They couldn't.
contesting that, so I'm not
Yeah,
sure what
yeah,
they mean by that, because it's almost irrefutable in terms of when he admitted to, at a certain point, when he admitted that those text messages were happening, that she sent him photos.
yeah.
I mean, when you look at the second set of interrogation, when he actually was sitting with Detective Jones, I think it was, the one who read all of the text
Oh, it was
messages.
terrible
That
audio.
well, if you so Judge Sabri had her own Zoom
Yeah.
going, and if you went to Judge Sabri's
Uh,
Zoom, you could hear it much better. Um, but it towards the end of the interrogation, at least that they showed, he did kind of like, well, I think she sent me some pictures and we were exchanging, you know what I mean? He kind of admitted to a couple of things, and those things are crimes. So
yeah,
accepting her pictures, viewing her pictures, going back and forth with her, sexting, things like that. I think he was not able to even deny anymore that those things did
yeah,
happen.
yeah.
But as far as the actual unalive, no. Um, but I think that he's copped to some things. He just can't not. You know what I mean? There's just too
Absolutely.
much.
Yep, yep.
He was definitely carrying on as if it was okay. And back to Annette and Shannon, because there was, and I'm talking about them specifically, between this mother daughter. I even if it wasn't okay, Jarvis was obviously managing these women to a degree where he was able to do what he wanted to do.
Hmm.
Right.
So whether it was by turning a blind eye, or just being aware completely, I don't know, but he obviously did a lot of what he wanted to do.
Oh, thank you,
Well,
sweetheart.
I think that one of the strategies that the defense is going to probably employ in this case, especially when it comes to the relationship, any charges that he has in regards to the inappropriate relationship he would have had with Naziah,
Hmm.
is he's going to plead guilty to that right away. And then what that's going to do is that's going to allow his attorneys to exclude some of that information from the trial in regards to her death. And they're going to, not all of what we heard, not all of those messages will necessarily get to come in, because they're going to go through, his attorneys will challenge that. Now, how successful they are, I don't know how good the community defender service is, or how much time they will put in to the pretrial phases of this, but I would imagine they seem to be pretty aggressive fighters in the courtroom, at least during the preliminary hearing,
Mhm.
that they're going to try to fight. I think that's going to be a strategy that's going to come up. And like I said, he's got other cases too that are working their way through, which he has not pled guilty to. But I would imagine that he's going to enter into some sort of a
A
plea
plea.
and take time on that and try to avoid a life sentence by saying he did this. Because I think if his defense could be that he says that there was a jealous woman involved in this, and that jealous woman would have been
Well, that's what's
Shannon,
being alleged. Yeah.
and which would
Well, what
require
about
him.
Tashiana? What about the other ones? I mean, there were several women who I think could have been these guys find a particular type of woman who will be mad at everyone else but the actual offender.
Yep.
Yep.
So, a jealous woman, okay, jealous of who? Jealous of you being able to do what you want or jealous of you manipulating another person? Because at the end of the day, what Shannon has to realize is that Naziah was just as powerless as she was. There was no, and if she saw her as a competitor for Jarvis, well, take a seat in the line because
Yeah.
there were
She
several
meant
other
nothing
women
to
right
him.
behind her.
Yep. She meant nothing.
So, I mean, to be mad at Naziah was absolutely ridiculous because there were several other women. He had a 2-year-old with the other lady who he borrowed the Sentra from. The
Yep.
Sentra that he used potentially to dispose of Naziah's body. He had a 2-year-old with her.
Right.
Like, what? Why are you mad at Naziah for? Like, there's
Yeah.
plenty of other people.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So I think what we're going to do next, to kind of get into what we're all talking about, I think the part that I like to get into when we have a case that we're going to talk about is the closing is a closing argument of any hearing or trial. So
Mhm.
we're going to watch we're going to watch the state's closing that will kind of and talk about it, stop, start it, talk about different aspects of it because it lays it out. If you haven't watched the hearing yet, I would encourage you to do so. But this will be a good kind of a precursor to
It's a
that
really good summary. Yeah.
because it lays out a summary of what was presented and you
Mhm.
can go back and I have the full hearing broadcast that I broadcast on my channel here. There's a full playlist, but you can go back and check it out and watch the witness testimony for yourself that you're going to hear talked about. But we're going to hear the prosecutor who did a very nice PowerPoint
Mm.
presentation, who's going to be able to talk about the hearing or the evidence that was presented at this hearing that they believe proves that there's a probable cause exists in the case for Jarvis Butts to be held over on charges that he unalived Naziah Harris. So I've got the hold on here.
Can I make a
Welcome to
quick
the bougie gang too.
Yeah. Hey guys, thanks for
Shout
coming
out.
through. Can I make a quick suggestion? Because I know
Sure.
for a lot of people, if you're not a court watcher, I think like 5 days of testimony can be like a little overwhelming.
Yeah.
And what I binge watched it over a weekend, but I'm not even going to make that suggestion. One suggestion that I have is definitely Cordell, Annette, and Shannon are must see. Period.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, what we're getting ready to watch is must see. The closing arguments. In between that, what I suggest is just watch one or two bits of testimony and maybe one or two of the girlfriends, the trip to Ypsilanti with the sister of Cordell's
Yep.
kid's mom. Like, just watch it in bits and pieces. Don't feel so overwhelmed by like, I've got to watch 5 days of testimony, I'm in court. Because if you watch a little bit of it, it's going to make you want to watch all of it in
Yeah.
sequence. I really suggest finding some clips and watching and kind of understanding what's going on because it'll be 5 days of testimony that's going to go over your head. Because I feel like when I binged it that weekend, I knew what was going on, but I really didn't understand to the like everything until I watched it the second or third time. And when I watched some of it with my audience, I broke it down to the interrogation videos.
Yeah.
We didn't even do the text messages because it was just like you guys can watch
It
it
was
on
two
your
and a
own.
half hours of
Um,
yeah.
of
I just
just
yeah.
it was awful.
Uh-huh.
But we watched Annette, we watched Shannon, we watched the baby moms, we watched the testimony about the trip to Ypsilanti, we watched the information about the cell phone, we watched Cordell's. You know, there was very compelling testimony that I feel like if you break it down into portions,
Yep.
it's going to be easier to, because it's a lot of information, and anyone just coming in, I feel like it could be just overwhelming and just kind of a lot. So that's what I recommend, is just,
Absolutely.
just jump in where you can fit in, watch a bit of testimony, and then do some research. Unfortunately, documents are not available. So,
Yeah, that is true. Unfortunately, there is an inability to get documents online, and then I think Fran was telling us she even attempted to try to get um,
For you.
FOIA requests, and was unsuccessful in doing so due to the earliness of the case where it's at. They're not willing to release these documents at this point. But no, I think that's a great suggestion, Fran, because it is a lot of stuff. It is a lot of
Yeah.
information, um, and also on my site, if you want to go through it, I have all of the witness testimony in a playlist, so you
nice.
can go through
Okay.
individually and look at each individual piece of testimony, um, as you want to go through and watch it, if you don't want to watch it in a vacuum. And then I've also got um, the full days of hearing, but you can also go through that if you want to go through and just see an individual piece of testimony, check it out, watch it. um, some of them even have, some of the more important ones have timestamps and things, so you can go in and check
That's
in and
great.
drop
Yeah,
through.
that's always good.
Yep.
I wish I had been able to find that initially.
Yeah.
'Cause that was a
Yeah.
lot, and then
Yeah.
also hunting around for
A
which
lot of people
broadcaster
streamed
Oh, well,
Steve's
this
stuff.
who
A
had the
lot
best
of people.
audio, because the audio was bad. On
It
those
was
yes.
interrogation
terrible.
videos, it was
Well,
awful.
Mm.
this is. I mean, that's the thing about this case, is it was not picked up by any of the
No.
major people.
No. And a lot of people
Who,
streamed Steve's
yep,
streets.
Okay.
who normally would be picking it up, and I think that that was problematic um for the case in getting attention to it originally,
Mhm.
because Cordell, I don't really think many people watched the Cordell hearing when it was viewed live. I know I didn't.
Right.
And when I picked it up, I didn't even know at first that Annette and Shannon had testified, because the
Yeah,
Okay.
channel
they
I was
Yeah, it
testified.
watching it
No.
wasn't
on, it
right.
wasn't even broadcast on
That
that
was
Right.
particular
tacked
news
on.
channel. So
Yeah.
it's
Mhm.
like cut up everywhere. And that really is sad, because
Yeah.
those were the two most important pieces Cordell, those were the three most important pieces of testimony everyone needed to see.
I mean, I think
And
that
they
the
were
Detroit
the
probably
hardest to
figured
find.
out that they had I don't know that the broadcasters in Detroit knew to the extent. So Roxy, Nazia's cousin, she's like an older
Mhm.
cousin, was busy on social media bringing awareness to this situation. So Facebook, um, I think sometimes people underestimate the power of Facebook. The
Uh,
Facebook presence is there, and she has a strong following on Facebook. Mark DeAndre from 7 Mile Radio. So they mentioned a podcast a couple of times. They were referring to Mark DeAndre at 7 Mile Radio. So I don't think they realized that there was a slow churn of a
yeah.
social media awareness going on
Agreed.
until it really sparked, and all of these channels are getting, six-figure million views, and they saw that the testimony's getting a lot. So I feel like, unfortunately, because there's this story exists in so many places every single day. The same thing that happened to Naziah is happening right now
Yep.
and happened yesterday, but
Yep.
they don't have a dedicated social media
No.
following the story. So I think that's what caught some of the Detroit broadcasters flat-footed, because I don't think they even intended to cover it. They started covering it because they realized, oh my God, there's a lot of people paying a
Yeah.
lot of attention to this
Yep.
story that want to know about it. and they had to do what they had to, you know what I mean? They came in late.
Yeah. Yeah, as I said, Steve picked it up and had been running it,
Well,
but
actually,
he had
yeah, yeah, Fran. I was actually one of the first ones
yeah,
to
To be
broadcast.
broadcasting it.
To be
Yeah.
brought,
yeah,
I was. It was Detroit's channels and my channel, and I got
Mhm.
over 2 million views
Wow.
broadcasting it. It
yeah,
went
Yeah.
wild, and I cut because I started. I basically was streaming it, and then I started cutting up the testimony, and I had hundreds of thousands of views on all these testimonies, and normally, it doesn't get anything close to
Right.
that. So it was like shocking. And then all of a sudden, people were contacting me and like, "Can I use your stream?" I'm like, "Yes, of course." So my streams are being used all over the place,
yeah,
Mhm.
because you put it all
um,
together.
because I was putting it together like I normally would do with any case, and it just happened to be like a case that wasn't being, for whatever reason, I have no idea. Then I think Court TV at the end of the case, seeing how much it was getting,
Right.
they started
Have they
covering
picked
it
it up?
like on their evening wrap up show, where it was like they were oh, there's a hearing for Naziah Harris. So, I think like you said, I think this was something that Detroit thought was just going to happen like a lot of other cases have in
Right.
Detroit.
Okay.
It wasn't
Or
going to be a
anywhere else,
national
like
story.
Madeline Soto. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
How many
Yep.
other
Yep.
girls have gone missing since Madeline Soto? How
Yep.
many other weird parental situations are going on in Florida? So
Yep.
it's not necessarily a pile on or indictment onto Detroit. It's just I don't think they thought, just like whenever you're making the decision to pick up a story, not pick up a story, I don't think that they realized this was going to be
As
a
big as it
social
is.
media thing that it
Yep.
is. You know what I
Yep.
mean? I just
No, absolutely.
I think
Yep.
sometimes you have, and you guys too as broadcasters of your own channels, you guys have a choice between how many different stories every day.
Yep.
Uh huh.
And like Steven, you made the choice to pick up this story and it made a huge difference, right?
Yep. Yep.
But you probably had two or three other stories you could have covered that day, right? And
Oh,
Yep.
absolutely.
you
Well, that
picked
was
this
the thing.
one
That
for
was the
whatever reason, right? And
Yeah.
it's sometimes it just turns out to be like,
well.
"Oh shit, I picked up on something that, that people
Yep.
really are getting behind." And it's unfortunate that we can't give this type of attention to every story, but that's
Yeah.
just, we gotta give attention where we can give attention.
Yep. Well, I think you're 100% right because it was like this story the trial itself, because I have a lot of different I'll be checking to see what trials are going on, and this one just caught my eye, and I thought, you know what, I want to give this one a little attention because when I looked into the background of it, and I thought we'll start airing. That's what I like to do because I'll air sometimes 2 to 3 to 4 trials at a time,
Mm,
and
mhm.
to get the attention out and on the cases and air it. And this one, for whatever the reason, garnered immediate attention, and I'm glad it did because it deserves attention because these
It
people
deserves
were
attention,
operating
absolutely.
in darkness, and they were operating thinking
Yes.
that they were not going to be seen, and this is what it's about. I mean, this is what needs to happen, and this is why cameras should be in every courtroom, and it should be brought in this day and age,
I
um,
totally agree.
and not only that, but also there are times when you need to have prosecutors that need to be that need to be called out and need to be seen on what they're doing. But this is a case where we need to, the community there needs to be seen of like these people need to be broadcast on how they failed, and these school officials, because remember, this is the same area where the Ethan Crumley disaster happened, where the
Yes.
school officials
Mhm.
let that guy go back to class and didn't search his books. Now, the parents, of course, had their own responsibility, but these school officials, which we've now learned had immunity agreements, didn't do their job in that case. And then we have this one here where this little girl's asking for help and the counselor doesn't show up. So, how many times do we let the Detroit school officials and the Michigan school officials slide by to where they just don't do what they're supposed to do? They don't do their due diligence to make sure these children are safe and to make sure that they're being taken care of. And you have a child screaming out and they're just too busy to deal with it. And time again, it's already happening into disastrous consequences. In this case, we have a young lady that's missing now. In the Ethan Crumley case, we actually had a whole entire school that was shot up. I mean, it's like
Absolutely, yeah.
it's something that, again, it gets better when we watch. It gets better when we highlight, and it's not to hurt anybody, but it's to as we know, whenever you make a mistake, that's how you get better. You be aware of the mistake, but they're not going to take notice of their mistakes if they don't have to, if we're not watching.
Well,
You
and
know,
to your point about her doubled over with pain, like, okay, so they called the guidance. I guess it was after hours. Maybe
Mhm.
school had just ended, but why didn't you call the EMTs? Why
Yep,
didn't you
yep,
call the nurse? I mean,
mhm.
sometimes the nurse is gone. You know what I mean? Because all these educators, they got kids to go pick up too. So the nurse could have gotten off from, the nurse could have been gone.
Absolutely.
But if you still have an administrator in the building, like the principal, vice principal, someone, because if the doors are open, there's still some administrator in the building. Why didn't they take her to urgent care? Why didn't they
That's right.
call for a nurse? Why didn't they call the EMTs? We've got someone who, and or even just deeper dive to say, hey, are you on your menstrual? Are you having cramps? What's going on? Why are we laying on the
Yep,
floor? Can I help
yep.
you? Why are you calling a guidance counselor after hours when the guidance counselor is probably on her school pickup line going to pick up her kids? You know what I mean?
Right,
Like,
exactly,
why are
exactly.
we calling the guidance counselor instead of a medical professional or an administrator to make a decision if you need to bring in some medical intervention that you've got a kid that looks physically in distress?
Yep,
Because that was to me more of the missed opportunity. Rather than the guidance counselor who didn't show up. What did she need a guidance counselor for? She
yep.
seemed to be in pain. That was
Mhm.
weird. Or just
Well,
calling and saying, "Hey, Miss Harris, we've gotten Isaiah here, she's getting ready to go get on the bus, but she seems to be in pain. We want to alert you so when she comes home,
mhm.
or do you want to come pick her up? Something."
Absolutely. Well, and I think one of the reasons why I was highlighting the guidance counselor is because it was a counselor in the Crumley case that was involved in
Oh,
that,
yeah,
and they
yeah.
and
Mhm.
they failed. But the guidance counselor, to me, these school counselors need to be held accountable for the decisions they're making because they have the ability to intervene. And like you said, absolutely,
Absolutely.
they should have been calling her grandmother, her aunt, or someone to get her, to intervene because she's in pain. She's crouched over in
Right.
pain. I mean, that's not normal. That's
Isn't
and you don't
Don't they
just
send us a pack of papers home when kids start school every year to
yep,
say, if your child has some sort of medical emergency, do we have permission? Who's
yes,
who's the doctor? What's your insurance? You have us fill out all these papers. So
yep,
if the child seemed to be in some sort of pain, why wasn't the EMTs called? Why wasn't medic called? Why wasn't the nurse called? You know what I mean?
yep,
That that
absolutely.
that to me was weird.
Very weird. Like I said, the entire way the case was handled in this case by the schools or by the school all the way up until you know the next morning when she was finally reported. But the fact that the grandmother went to the school to report this and not the police department, I mean, it was crazy. It was as if the grandma was going to try to say like the school was somehow responsible for not bringing her home, even though it's been 24 hours. It's like, why would you go to the school and make this report? Why would you not be calling, going down to the police? Now, again, I don't know how it all works because the school systems where I'm at do not have full police departments either. So maybe there's a different mindset that they know that they have, a different ability than what we would have. But I mean, I'd be going down to the sheriff's department and saying, "Hey, my
It was
kid's missing."
definitely a slow walk. I feel like, look, and that's just my gut. I feel like it was purposefully slow walked to create as many obstacles as possible
Right.
to get to the point where there's actually like a for real police detective in your face asking you questions.
Yep.
So I think that Annette, you know, whether it was Annette or not, but I'm going to put Annette at the leadership of it because she's the guardian. She created as many opportunities for there to be as many obstacles to the point where we see a press conference a month later. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, I think that was all by her, that was all by her manipulation because even the sister, Jernell, Annette's half sister, stated that, she didn't find out for a couple of days after
Right.
Neziah went missing, and Annette was not very cooperative with sharing information. Annette and her household was very onerous of this whole Neziah debacle, and even the outside help from the family was completely rebuffed. Like, they just didn't want, if you were out from the outside of her household, um, her kids, she rejected all outside interference.
Yeah, under her control.
Mm-hmm.
My roof, my rules.
Yes.
Right.
All right, so we'll go ahead. Now that Jody's back, we'll go ahead and get this
Sorry.
playing here. No,
Too
you're
many
fine.
coffees.
All right, here we go.
So this is closing. This is it.
Yeah,
State's closing?
this is a state's closing argument. Yep. Well,
This
it'll.
judge didn't hold back either, did she?
She was good. Yeah.
Yeah, she was very good.
I'm going to take care of a few preliminary matters. It is the people's intent to increase count 3, which is currently criminal sexual conduct second degree, to criminal sexual conduct first degree, person under 13, defendant 17 years of age or older. We have the defendant's birthday on the record, and that would be based on the testimony of the one minor witness that testified, as well as Cordell Wright's testimony. The minor witness testified that it happened at the old shop, and when Ms. Ripley was asking questions, she identified that as being the location. Cordell Wright testified back in November that they didn't move from that shop, which was at East Warren and Neff in the city of Detroit, until May or June. Based on Neziah's birthday, which is in her medical records, at that time she would have been 12 years old, and the minor witness testified clearly describing an act of penetration, specifically penis to anal opening. With respect to the criminal sexual, child sexually abusive activity, that would be based on the text messages as well as the minor's testimony as well. Combining those two things satisfies the elements of those charges. However, going to count 1 in murder in the first degree premeditated, I would like to go through and put some of the pieces together. And we are standing here today in court on January 9th, 2025, which is 1 year, almost to the minute, the last time Neziah was seen on a camera in the city of Detroit, which is on the screen now. The last time that she was seen was on January 9th, 2024 at 2:56, getting off of the bus at 3 Mile Drive in Cornwall and walking down Bedford. She was walking towards what she didn't know at the time would be Jarvis Butts and her ultimate murder by him. We take that moment in time and then go to Cordell Wright's testimony where he testified that they picked Neziah up on their way back to their shop at 9000 Connor, and they proceeded with her to that location. We have Jarvis Butts' sister's testimony, Tijuana Butts, who did say that she saw a young girl with a very distinct and distinct jacket getting in and out of that car, the white Cadillac Escalade. That would have been before Jarvis, Cordell, and Neziah departed for Ypsilanti. We have Sergeant O'Rourke's testimony as to his cell phone locations based on cell tower information and the historical call detail records, which place them consistent going out to Ypsilanti. And then we have Cordell's testimony getting them back to the shop. Talacia Moore also testified to seeing Neziah in Ypsilanti with Cordell and Jarvis. Cordell, as we know, testified that he had to get back to his house based on his tether hours by 9 p.m. And that is the last time that anyone who is not Jarvis Butts would see Neziah Harris alive. From the shop, we proceed out to the Park Crest Inn, where Jarvis Butts checked into a hotel at 9:30 p.m. And Sergeant O'Rourke's testimony corroborates this, placing his phone in the area of that 20,000 Harper address at around midnight till early in the next morning on the 10th, using the data that you see on the screen in those times. Recapping January 9th, this is the last time that we have any sort of communication from Neziah. There was, if you look at those messages that Sergeant Jones went through and read, just between Neziah and Jarvis, there was consistent and constant communication up until January 9th. There's also no messages from Jarvis after Neziah goes missing on the 9th, looking for her, seeing where she is, trying to find her, trying to help, as anyone should do at that time, her family locate her. There's no messages to her phone, to that Text Now account from Jarvis Butts' phone. Her legal guardian and grandmother, Annette Harris, has not seen any social media posts. The OIC of the case, Sergeant Jones, has not seen anything for a total of 1 year now. The Lieutenant George Harris, who was involved in the investigation in the first month, didn't see anything that he saw from social media or text now after the 9th. Jarvis Butts on the 9th, we know, borrowed Latricia Johnson's car overnight, which was unusual. He borrowed that and then again borrowed it on the 10th or 11th. We know that Naziah's glasses were found in that car sometime after the 10th or 11th when Latricia Johnson was at that shop and Jarvis Butts snatches them out of her hand. From the Parkcrest Inn and from January 9th, we go out to 7 Mile and Burke. This is by far the most important location in this case because we know that the defendant spent from 11:40 p.m. on the 10th to 1:34 a.m., nearly 2 hours in that area, in that wooded area where the Rouge River runs through. And to give, this is from the slideshow of the scene photos that were taken at 7 Mile and Burke. This is the area where it's the people's theory Jarvis Butts did at least one of two things. Either killed Naziah at 7 Mile and Burke, but at the very least dumped her body in this location. We know this because of the evidence that was found there, specifically the black hoodie, which you see in this photo here, as well as the pink bodysuit and the shoes that we confirmed or that are hers based on the picture that the OIC received from her brother. And those items were collected. The black hoodie and pink jumpsuit were tested. And importantly, Rion Green testified as to which swabs were which. This analysis here and hypothesis and result pertains to the right shoulder swab on Naziah Harris's black hoodie that she took that picture in when she was in school on January 9th. The one, importantly, that Annette Harris testified was in good condition when Naziah left. We will get to pictures of that, but this shows that Naziah Harris's DNA is there as well as Jarvis. And importantly, this is one of the stain swabs that was positive not just for blood, but human blood based on the hemotrace results. In the next one, we have, this pertains to not the stain swabs, but the regular swab that Rion Green testified was a wearer ID swab. Importantly here, Jarvis Butts' DNA from that swab that would have been taken around the neck of that sweater or the end of the arms of that sweater is there with very strong support. And of course, Naziah's DNA is there as well. And when we look at that sweater specifically through the PowerPoint photos that Rion Green took and put together, we can see that there is a lot of markings on this. If the court looks closely on this, and I did, there are 15 phenol-positive stain markings on this sweater. This is just the front of that sweater. And of course, the court paid attention and saw the markings or the damage to the hood that it is the people's theory would have been stab wounds or something to that effect that happened when Jarvis Butts murdered Naziah Harris. We also have to look, and it goes to the premeditation element as well as everything he did before, at Jarvis Butts' actions, specifically what he did to attempt to conceal or cover up his role in the murder of Naziah Harris. First, we have the glasses that he made sure he grabbed directly from Latricia Johnson's hands when shown, that are consistent with the glasses she had in the photo from the 9th when she was in school. We have the jail call to Cordell Wright to get that phone of his out of Miss Davis's car and into someone else's possession, which he testified he tried to do, but was ultimately unsuccessful. And then Sergeant Jones testified that they ultimately did recover that phone from Miss Davis's car. There's the phone call to Latricia Johnson, which was played when she was testifying, saying to get anything he touched clean, to clean anything he touched, to get anything, don't drive her car, drive his mom's car, which is important because when you combine her testimony of when Jarvis Butts took her car, those 2 times on the 9th and 10th, and then either the next day or that same day, it's important because that car is the car that he transported Naziah Harris out to 7 Mile and Burke to either dump her body or to murder and then dump her body there. And we can go through all of the lies that Jarvis Butts told any detective or any officer that he testified to, but In highlighting those, he denies to Detective Mays that he was with Neziah at all or had talked to Neziah at all on the 9th, denies ever picking her up, denies to, even when confronted with the January 9th messages, he said that it wasn't him initially. Obviously, we heard in the subsequent interviews, specifically on June 1st with the OIC, he came off of that. He told Shannon Harris that Neziah texted him on the 9th. She says that he never did that. And we have some of their messages in the record as well. He denies going to a hotel and denies going to a hotel with Neziah Harris and denies having any sort of sexual relationship with Neziah, even though the text now messages completely prove that that is an absolute lie.
Oh, I'm so glad you stopped right there.
Yep.
It's so much to unpack just in that bit.
Yep. So
And there's conflicting stories too.
Well, so the one thing that stands out to me is the prosecutor is actually, now the judge adopted the idea when she made her ruling that that it was some sort of a failed attempt to I guess get rid of the pregnancy. But you could see here the state is trying to say that there were potential stab wounds on the back of that sweatshirt that could indicate that he was stabbing her. Now, again, I think the problem that the state's going to run into in this case is going to be proving, because there's no area of, like, if he stabs her to death, there should be blood in the hotel room.
Yeah.
There was no blood found in the hotel room. So we know it did. If that happened, it didn't happen in a hotel room, but we know he got a hotel room, and what was the purpose? My belief is the blood that maybe there was an attempt to do something with the body, cut it up or something after the fact. I don't know. That might account for some of the blood, or it could be blood from the failed procedure. Like,
was
for
there
instance,
actual footage of her going into that hotel though? Because I've heard differing stories.
no, they don't have any footage of her. They don't have any
No.
footage of her. The last known footage of her was walking from the bus in the direction to where they know Jarvis would have been. That's it. That's
So
the
it could
last
have
known
happened
footage.
at the workshop.
And then no, it definitely wouldn't have happened at the workshop because there's no signs of anything. At the workshop, and he left the workshop right after Cordell leaves because they have a cell phone tracking leaving the workshop. So all his movements are accounted for. He goes to the hotel. So whatever happened, more likely than not, whatever he was planning to do, more likely than not, was planned to have occurred at the Parkview. Would you agree with that, Fran, or what would you?
Of hers there, did they? There's no physical evidence whatsoever at the hotel of hers.
Well, there isn't, but that doesn't necessarily mean that she wasn't there for whatever it was that they did, because it's possible, like I said, that some sort of complication occurred or something with whatever they were trying to do, and it could have occurred on the toilet, and it could have all gone down the toilet, and then maybe she was continuously bleeding. My thought was maybe she put the sweatshirt around herself and she's bleeding, and this thing's going completely out of control, and that's why the sweatshirt's got the blood on it. And then she loses consciousness, and then he's got a problem, so he wraps her up in her, the jacket and the sweatshirt, and puts her in, I guess, the car that he would have borrowed from Latricia.
Where her glasses were.
And we know then he takes her down to the, she passes away, and then he's like, oh my God. But the question is, where the heck is the body? That's what I want to know. I mean, if they think she's down at the River Rouge, why in the world have they not done everything they need to do to locate? You would think it would be able to be located at some point in that river. I mean, I don't know how complicated that is myself, but I would imagine that if they think she's there, they found all her clothes there. You'd think they'd have dive teams or whatever, or be sparing no expense, which I don't think necessarily might have been done originally in this case.
So I think there were there's footage of the searches, like the wet searches that were going on in the Rouge River, which is what they said is right there at 7 Mile and Berg. So I think that happened because I mean it's almost March. What was yesterday was Valentine's Day, right? So the press conference that we saw was a year ago.
Yep.
Mhm.
So when Annette was outside crying with Shannon, and we saw Tamara Liberty Smith, and we saw everybody from Detroit law enforcement outside, that was a year ago yesterday.
Okay.
So I mean, we don't unless you're looking at the coverage. I mean, a lot of that was happening. They had dive teams at a lake that was not too far, like some sort of big
Mhm.
pond in a lake. Like those things happen. I don't know that those things are happening now because maybe it's February in Michigan, and there's snow and there's ice and it's frozen and all of those things. I don't know what they're able to do. Um I Now, as far as what happened, I'm gonna be honest, I have no idea what happened to her.
No.
I hate that she had to suffer in her last moments. I don't know what he did with her. Like if he did something with her at the hotel, did he do it in the woods? Did he plant the phone in the woods and take off? I would love to know, is Latricia Johnson's car with the technology that they can actually GPS the vehicle and the movement like they did with Alex Murdoch. You know what I mean? Like, okay, the
Mm.
phone was there, but where was he? Because
Yep.
people are, I mean, he's not
Yep.
super smart, but
Well,
some people do know, hey, let me leave this phone here and I'm going to take off and I'll just come back and pick it up. You know what I
Well,
mean? Like,
don't you think it's
Yeah.
interesting though that they didn't ask for, like, to me, they should have gone. I mean, there's a person, there's a couple people that should have had their phones downloaded as well, which was
Yeah.
her aunt and her grandmother, because I'd love
Mhm.
to know where they were at, where they were at in all this, and they should have been suspects from the beginning,
Mhm.
just simply because of their proximity to the child and the fact that she's missing. I understand, they eventually uncovered the relationship between Jarvis, but the fact that the aunt would be, I mean, technically speaking, Isaiah would be a romantic competitor to her. They should have been looking at all those people. They would
well,
have had
they
more
looked
than
at
enough.
Shannon's phone, didn't they? Because they got messages from Shannon's phone. They
No,
had
they never.
messages between Shannon and Jarvis.
Yes, that was off of
I don't
Jarvis's
think
phone.
they did a
They never,
forensic download though.
they never did a forensic download of
Mm.
her phone or her devices nor nets. No,
I
all of that
wonder.
came from Jarvis's
Mhm.
devices, but they never went. And that's why people are so upset, because they never went and investigated them. They treated them like they were, you know, not involved.
Right.
And again, this is coming back to the thoroughness of an investigation when they don't think the
When they're
world's
complacent.
watching. They
Mhm.
think,
Well, and also just the assumption that why would a grandmother, like it maybe they were not aware how deeply embedded this acceptance or
well,
complicitness of the
here,
sexual of how Jarvis, how deeply he was able to do as much of what he wanted to do with this family. You know what I mean? Like maybe
Mm.
they would have just assumed that they would have done something different, or they weren't turning a blind eye. They just assumed like, oh my god, she's missing, they've got to be upset. I
well,
think, yeah,
but
a
here's the
bias.
thing. Yeah, but here's the missing. Here's the part that makes that turns all that on its head. That should have had the investigators asking questions. The unusual behavior that should have triggered an investigation into them was the 24-hour
Yep.
delay in reporting.
Absolutely, yeah.
And that is enough to say, you know what, we need to look and see who all is connected to this, and who and where they're at, where they were. Because to me, there should have been a verification to say, okay,
Mhm.
grandma says she's looking around. Let's download your phone. Let's get a warrant. Let's find out where you're at. Because it was completely, to me, crazy how casual they were when they said,
Yep.
yeah, this is the first time she ever goes missing. And it's like, okay, so you weren't out
I'm gonna sleep on it. Yeah.
like burning down the city
Uh
trying to
huh.
find her. Like,
Well,
it's not
that says
usual
two
behavior.
things. It says two things: either you're lying and
Okay,
that's not the truth, or you don't care.
right.
So, or
Well,
both. You know what I mean? Like
in either of those would have been, in my opinion, would have been enough to
a
start an
red flag.
Yeah.
investigation
Absolutely.
of
Yep.
neglect, because that would
Absolutely.
because of the fact that the grandmother is not just a grandma in this.
She's the
She
guardian.
is the actual legalized guardian parent of the child.
Absolutely.
Therefore, she had a duty to the child. So this is where, again, this is why that judge said they failed her in
Right.
not immediately
Absolutely.
investigating every member of that was around her and associated with her, and simply focusing on Jarvis. Now, I think this is a news report. I don't know if this is the
Just while you're on that, Steve, you know how we were talking earlier about the supposed brother's audio. He in that audio he explains all of that.
Oh, he
He
does.
has an
Okay.
explanation for why the clothes are there, what Jarvis's movements were, and why the whole.
Oh, he does. So he actually
Yeah,
explains
yeah,
it all as far as
yes, yes,
what.
yep.
Well, I'll have to
Who
send
it
me a
is or
link to
who it
that because I
isn't,
want to.
I will. Yeah, yep.
I want to. I'm always interested to hear.
It answered a lot of questions for me.
Good afternoon,
So this
everyone.
is
Thank you for
the.
being here. I want to just start off before I bring up Chief Jackson from Detroit Public Schools Police Department and to what brought us here today. On February 12th, we had a briefing on this missing child. Yesterday, we had a much more comprehensive and detailed meeting where he brought forth a number of different factors as to what occurred and what they have been working on. We left that meeting with some very serious concerns about Nazaya's safety, and I'll bring up Chief Jackson at this time to give you an overview, and I'll be coming back up to talk about the details. Chief Jackson.
Good afternoon. Back on January 9th, we believe Miss Nazaya Harris did not return home from school. She was a student at Clark Elementary. January 10th, her family went about the process of reporting her missing. We began our investigation at that point. We began working back, following through her on her last known steps, possible person she was in contact with, some of her school-age friends, gathering different information. As we began to work back through that information with our local, state, and federal law enforcement partners, information that we obtained has led us to this point here. At that point, we reached out to Chief White to let him know the developments that we had, and so at that point, we decided that this investigation had kind of gone past the four walls of our building, and Chief White stepped in to help us out. Chief White.
All right, thank you, Chief. So again, after our meeting yesterday, we were very, very concerned. I made the decision at that time that we will take lead on this investigation. We'll be bringing in our local, federal, state partners, a very concerned community, our Board of Police Commissioners, our civic leaders, every single person to assist us in bringing little Nazaya home. That's the goal here, is to do everything we can to bring her home. We have debriefed on a number of different factors. We're hopeful that we find her well, but we can't operate on hope. We have to operate on information, investigation, and work, and that's what we're here to do today with this incredible show of force that we have at this time. I will bring up Deputy Chief Carrie Sloan to talk a little bit about some of the aspects of the investigation at this time, but I will tell you that it is still early in the investigation on our part, although DPS has done a number of different.
So yeah, so that press conference, that's a good one because Annette and Shannon show up, and there was a lot of scrutiny about, like, I'm gonna just use the word performance, not to make it seem like they weren't upset, but there was definitely some people had things to say, yeah, that it was giving performance, it was giving crocodile tears, it was giving trying to show adequate, um, you know, like they just weren't, it was giving not authentic. I'll just say it like that. Not the devastation that you would think that should have been had by the grandmother and the aunt, that just, after a month, she'd been gone a month at this point.
That's the crazy part about this is these people and the reaction we're going to see here. Yes, is this little girl was missing for an entire month, and these people were not demanding more from the authorities, which I think is interesting, because when you're not demanding from the authorities to investigate, there's a reason for that, because they didn't
Right.
want them to investigate.
Well,
They didn't
also
want
the
them to look.
psychology of the matter. Why in like if you're looking at the psychology of it, the reason why people who are guilty aren't looking or asking questions is cuz your brain already knows what happened.
Yep.
Typically people can't sleep, they can't eat, they can't function because they need answers. If
Yes.
you already have the answers, but you're just trying to cover up, your actions
Yep.
may betray you, because the psychology of it all is because your brain is already aware. That's why you're not going to be out looking for
Yep.
something that you know is not look you need to look for, because you
Yep.
already know the answers. So
Yep.
that's why they
Yep.
should be looking at the people who weren't looking. And
Yep.
that's why the other part of the family was so like, oh my god, why are you guys not looking? Why are you guys taking down flyers? Why are you guys doing things contrary? Well, they were doing things contrary because they probably already have the answers.
Yep. No, that's a
Well,
very
that's all in the brothers' audio. I've sent it to you,
that's
Steve.
a very thank you, Jody. That's a very, very good point,
Yep.
Fran, because that
Yep.
I think you're right on
He
the
explains the
mental
24
side of it.
hours.
Is they normally you're correct. Your curiosity, your lack of
Hmm.
knowing is gonna drive you nuts.
Right.
And in their case, they already knew, so it was like they were more worried about when do I need to turn on the emotion
Cover up. Yeah, the
as
cover up.
opposed to when do I naturally showing it. And again, I couldn't believe when they testified the lack of emotion that was shown. I mean, I've never
Right.
seen missing people, or I've never seen close family members of a missing person show up in court, give an entire testimony about the last time they saw this person, and show literally no emotion. It was like they were
Yep.
just talking about something that was
Like
not.
someone from down the street they didn't know very well.
Yes,
Hmm.
exactly. Like they were being called in about a neighbor, and it's like, yeah, this is
Yep.
what happened here. And this is this lady's adopted
Granddaughter.
daughter
Hmm.
slash granddaughter, and she's just pretty much very casual, very nonchalant about it. So this is, hold on, ever get this up here. This picks up
What
right
about
here.
the discrepancy in the
The mother,
clothes?
yeah, grandma.
What
Yeah.
about
Yeah.
the blue shoes versus red shoes? Like,
The
do
brother
you
describes all that too.
how is it that you didn't know, like, did she enter the house after school, change her clothes, and then go out to go meet up with Jarvis? Like, did
Hmm.
they ever find her backpack, her school
Not
bag?
that I've
No,
seen. But
no,
that
they never
pink
did.
jumpsuit, no one
Nope,
saw her in
nope.
that.
No, they never found the book bag, to my knowledge. That is not in the evidence, which
The book
is
bag is like, that's a key piece.
well,
I feel like wherever a kid is, that their book bag is not too far,
Mm.
well,
especially these days when you don't have lockers anymore. The kids barely have use of lockers. They have to carry their books all day.
mhm.
And where was her tablet? The school tablet, I think. Did they find it at school, or it was
Yeah,
at the
it
house?
was no. The school tablet was, I think, at the school.
She left it at school
That's the
that
Yeah,
one she
day.
because
had the photo.
the investigator went in and pulled up the messages on it as when the initial.
But it's like,
Uh,
why'd she leave her school tablet unless they didn't let them take them home? But I would
I
imagine
I
in
think
her
that's what it
grade.
was, and then her grandmother had a tablet for her that was at her house as well.
Okay.
So yeah, the school tablet stayed at school, but she had downloaded the text now to the school tablet
Okay.
somehow. I have no idea how she got that done, but she was communicating on
With
the
him.
school tablet to him,
Hmm.
saying, still, they were
Don't
talking
forget
about the
to come
pickup
get
at
me.
3:15. Come
Yep.
get me.
Mm.
So again, it's very problematic when you look at the timeline and the things that are missing. But the state, as we're seeing when we get back to the closing argument, they're putting a narrative together, which is basically saying, again, they don't have to prove how it was done. They just have to prove that she was killed at his hands,
Mhm.
and they're making the case to get the largest charge available, which is to say that she was somehow stabbed. They don't have to produce a weapon. They can just say, if the jury adopts that those were stab wounds, that he doesn't get credit for disposing a knife. He doesn't get credit for disposing of evidence. So if the evidence is there that the jury adopts and says, we are going to say this proves this, then it's that. That's why a lot of
Right.
people don't consider that jurors, and this is the power that jurors have, That when a jury goes to that jury room, the law matters not. In fact, this was we did a coverage of this when we were doing the Mangione case. He's talking about doing jury nullification, but the power of jury nullification is the power juries really don't take advantage of a lot because they don't think they can. They don't understand they can. And in New Hampshire is actually making it now a requirement that if the defendant wants the jury to be instructed on jury nullification, or the state does, they're allowed to be able to be instructed on it because that jury decides what the facts of the case are. They decide whether or not that person's going to be guilty, and they can go back there and say, you know what, this is enough. And that's what the state's doing in this case. They don't have all the answers. They don't have to necessarily produce all the answers. But I think when you put this, when you listen to their closing and you see the timeline, I would find it hard to believe that 12 jurors would go back there and say, just because we don't have an answer to this or that, they don't need it.
Well, I think it would stand to reason. She took a picture of herself that day. She has her glasses on. She has on
Yep.
the black hoodie.
Yep.
A month later, they find certain articles in the woods,
Yep.
and it's completely destroyed. And you have a witness that states that there was a pair of clear glasses that she didn't know anything about. I'm wondering, did the police ever retrieve those glasses?
No, they were not able to.
Okay.
Yeah, they were not. Unfortunately,
So
he
probably
grabbed
Ones that were in
them.
the car.
Well, he grabbed them from her son, and after that, they were never seen again.
Okay. So he probably broke
So
them
he
and threw them in the
broke them,
trash. Or,
which
The
is
one in
to
the
me.
back of the car.
Well, what makes no sense to me? No, they were not. Well,
they were in the back of the car, but yeah.
they were taken by he got a hold of them and said they were his or his son's, another
Right.
son. Now the thing is that the thing that I don't understand, that I think that just continues to confuse me, is why were those items, just those items, found where they were, and why was nothing else found around them? Like you said, the book
Well,
bag.
people feel like the word on the street, which I don't know if this, you know what I'm saying? This is word on the street. This is
Yep.
the
Sure,
gossip.
sure.
This is what's in the comment section, is that people feel like, because I've got a short of the sneakers and Naziah wearing those sneakers from her Instagram on my Facebook. I think it's on my YouTube too. It's a short. But in the comment section, what is a resounding comment is that people feel like the evidence was planted there.
Yep.
So I don't know. You know what I mean? I don't know what
Gotcha.
we don't know what the
Yep.
police think. The fact that they collected this evidence, um,
So then what
no,
you're saying, basically is that that might not even be where the reason why they never found the body is because that's not where she's
That's where
actually at.
they were
well,
planted there to throw them
that's
off.
the word on the street,
Yep.
is that people are saying that they feel like the evidence that was collected as far as the shoes and the clothes weren't they, like that might not be where they were. They feel like it was purposely, like it was left there by someone, not necessarily that was his dump site. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Now, I don't know if that's true or not. I don't have enough
Probably right.
information to be able to say that, like, you know what, you guys are right. And maybe the reason why they're not finding enough evidence in that general area is because that wasn't where it was. Because keep in mind, they were looking in some sort of lake or pond or something not too far away. What the reason was they went there, I don't know.
Well, the
Um,
reason they went there is, in the state had mentioned it, is because the cell phone data showed he was in that area. And when they got the cell phone downloads, and then they went and looked in that area, and they were searching that river area because of the cell phone data. And
Yeah, but
then
that was the next day. He didn't go there
no,
till
that was like a month or so. Well, you're talking about when he went there? Yeah, that was the
yeah.
next day. But what I'm saying though is that his cell phone, now he could have left his cell phone in places, but his cell phone data is what they were using to track him, which is why the prosecution is stuck with saying, well, whatever happened there, either killed her or he
Yeah.
disposed of the body
they
there.
need to get the OnStar engine computer. They need to get those
Yep.
engine computers like they did in the Murdoch case,
Mhm.
and it's the car. It's the vehicle that I think is more telling. I mean, yes, cell phones do tell a lot, but cell phones can also be left. If you're relying on a vehicle to get away with a murder,
Mhm.
now it's you need to download the movement of the actual
Well,
vehicle.
I don't know if was the car that he was driving, Latricia, was that a car that would have had that information?
I don't
No,
know. I
Yeah,
think
it
they
because
was
I
a
were
think it was.
service
Sentra.
vehicles. They may not have had like
Yeah, I was going to
It was
say
a
I don't
Nissan
think they
Sentra, wasn't
were
it?
because what's that now, Jody?
It was a Nissan Sentra.
Yeah,
Mm,
I don't think unfortunately they would have had they would have had the vehicle she was driving would have captured that
yeah.
like Murdoch's did because his was a little fancier of a vehicle and he was paying for the subscription. But
Well,
I
also
mean,
sometimes the ignition starts. So
mhm,
even so let's just I'm not sure what the year of the vehicle was, but even like the ignition starts. So sometimes like the OnStar, yes, OnStar is going to have a lot more data, but your most cars at least that are like let's say 10 years old, they have some sort of a computer and the
mhm,
computer might tell ignition starts. How long was the engine? Because when you go to AutoZone or whatever, they are plugging into the computer of the vehicle and they can tell certain things. There might be some data trail that we know nothing about. But I'm sure they're probably thinking of those things. And I feel like with a lot of the questioning around Annette and Shannon, I feel like some of the detectives have got to think like, you know what, let's just to rule it out, let's go check out Shannon and Annette. I would be shocked if Annette and Shannon have not gotten more
Hmm.
questions in the
Yeah.
past 30 days. Like it would be especially in light of what happened with the internet sleuth getting arrested, all of the things with with the family squabbling and all of the if you go back now looking at all of the reports that the family were calling in on Annette's portion of the family and putting in reports and all kinds of things like that they're not just looking to just rule it out because who wants to get blindsided by Jarvis's defense that it was Annette and Shannon. I think they probably need to part of their investigation needs to rule out Annette and Shannon and just
Yep.
do some healthy due diligence just to make sure there wasn't some assistance or complicitness or just kind of like in the
Or
Adelson case.
involvement.
Like with the Adelsons, the deeper that you get,
yep.
the more you found like, "Oh my god, and they're involved, and they're involved, and oh no, and she's involved." Like, so you just never know.
Well, here's the thing. I think that, in my opinion, I think that part of the strategy that the state used in this case, because you got to remember, if they would have gone directly to Annette or gone in directly to Shannon, they could have lawyered up. So what they did in this case, in my opinion, what we saw happening, because again, a lot of people might not think of that hearing being it was a year after. It's something very early in the case, but it's still is considered to be a very early part of the case. It's
Yeah,
still being investigated. But that was a strategy, in my opinion, was bring them in because they know they got to show up and
right.
testify if they think they're
Absolutely.
playing the part of the innocent. And then the defense attorneys tore them apart.
Right.
And the defense attorneys cross-examined them, and I guarantee you they're investigating every bit of that testimony.
Right. If the
And now that they
prosecutors aren't the defenses, absolutely.
oh
You're right.
well, and now
Absolutely.
they have I bet you the prosecutors are because what they're doing now is they have her on record. And that is exactly what the police always want is to get a story on the record. The reason why is because then they have something to
They're stuck to it.
investigate. And the fact that they swore under oath that that's what was happening
Uh-huh.
in that they're locked with that story. And if the
Right.
Yep.
state, if the police now can go in, now would be a time. Now I don't know how good they can get data and cell phone data a year later, but if they were able to go in and find some of this stuff or find contradictory evidence to what they testified to in court, now you're in a total. Now they have something to work with. Now they have something to confront them with. Now they have something to say, hey, you know what? You said this happened. You said she didn't come home after school. If they could show that somehow she was back at that house or that she switched her clothes, or maybe they eventually find something, the book bags or whatever, they can now go after them and say, hey, look, why were you lying? If you were, if you're innocent, you wouldn't be sitting here lying on the witness stand under oath and now you can't come back and say it was this or it was that or make an excuse. They are locked in with exactly what they said. And if they find out that Shannon Harris was near the hotel and she said she was at home all night until the next day, that's damning. There's no way she can get around it now and say, well, yeah, I went over there. That story could have been ever changing if they're having to confront her. But now she's locked in telling a story, believing, because she's looking at him in a courtroom. Well, Jarvis is, we're gonna try to get Jarvis, and nobody's looking at us. So I would be with you on that, friend. I think the state is definitely, and the police are investigating, and of course, one of the benefits is because their testimony has become part of social media now and viewed. There are a lot of people, like you said, are calling in and speaking about what they said and what she did. And it's a treasure trove of information that they're going to be able to go after because, remember, maybe they don't get them for her death, but there's
But they
also
get
the
him for the
potential of neglectful behavior that
Neglect.
allowed her to become pregnant, that allowed her, allowed these people. How do you have a child in your house if she was 5.5 to 6 months pregnant and not know it? If
yeah. Well,
you're
her
being
last it
you're
was
being an attentive
September.
parent,
Absolutely, Jody.
and
Yeah.
she's
Did you see the
asking.
video of her dancing?
Yeah.
Yeah,
She
yeah,
looked thick around the middle. I mean,
yeah.
I wouldn't I it wasn't full on because I'm
No,
sure, you know what I mean? Like she was probably I don't know if she
it's
really understood what was going on with her body.
it's
I
in
mean, I
the
guess
thing if you want it,
right.
Steve. It's
Gotcha.
loaded up if you want to have a look. But yeah, I really think you should listen to the brothers'
No, I definitely
audio.
will. I want to listen
Yeah,
to it and
yeah, it
see
explains
what I think
all
about
of
it.
that.
Well, like I
I
said,
wonder
it's a
why they're not listening. Why are they not listening to the brother and why is this testimony? Like I wonder has he so he's talking to all of us dropping all of the tea,
well,
right? Where has he interviewed with Detroit?
well,
Like why is he
it,
putting all of this out and we're hearing it and the police haven't heard it?
I'm not sure if it was an
Yeah,
interview with them or not. I'll have to
like I
was
would
that
think
have
if
a look.
he's got so
did
much
he
information, why hasn't he called the OIC and called and said,
did
"Hey, I'm
he
Jarvis's brother and I know some things."
now, Jody? Did he do this interview after the hearing, or was this before the hearing?
Um,
I feel like
leave that
it's
with
been in the
me.
last few weeks.
Yeah, I was going
So
to say it had to be
Yeah, it
after.
wasn't.
So,
Yeah, but
I mean, look, but that's the problem. That's why, like I said, it's very difficult. He's not factually at this particular point. He hasn't sworn under oath. He's probably repeating what he heard from his own brother or what he's being told. So this is probably information the defense is going to go out. I mean, this is look, they were the way they questioned them and the way the defense was getting information because that's all the defense was looking for. They knew there was no chance that Jarvis wasn't going to be bound over for trial. So what they were doing was collecting information, and the nature and direction of the questions that we heard were very much, you could tell, directed at that potentially there was more to the story than what we were hearing when they were
right,
dealing with the grandma and the aunt. But the question will be is how does whatever that is align with? Listen, we know where Neziah was at I believe it was just before 9 o'clock or just before 8 o'clock, I think, because Cordell had to get back for his tether. We know she was at the shop with Jarvis. We
right.
know Jarvis shows up at the hotel at like 9:35.
30,
We
yep.
know that by check-in. We know that he goes and picks up that vehicle. What time did he pick up the vehicle from Latricia? Or
I've got
Latrice?
it on my timeline. It's in here.
Is that right
Just
here?
when he registered into the hotel, did he register with another person or just by
No,
himself?
no, just
Uh,
him.
just
And
him.
he was known there. He was known to frequent it.
Yeah, that was the hotel where he and Shannon
Yeah,
did their tryst, and that was a question that was brought out in Cross. This is why I'm saying they were getting information from them that was directing in a certain direction. Now we don't
there we go.
understand it because we're not privy to all of that.
Read that.
At the moment we were getting it all fresh. Let's see here. So they all arrive at the workshop. Cordell goes. Jarvis checks in, visits Letitia. But what time did he visit Letitia?
Can you not see that?
No, well, at the time, it just all says it
After
at
it was
9:30.
after 9:30. See what got me is between that 9:30 and 12:30 when that phone was unaccounted for, that he visits two baby mamas. Why would you do
Yeah.
that whilst you unalive someone in the
Well,
car? Like,
because what I believe is she had to have been at that hotel then. The little girl or Desire had to be at the hotel then. In my opinion, unless he just like offed her, and strangled her to death or something. But again, I don't understand why he would feel the need. This is the part that doesn't make sense. Why would he feel the need to suddenly kill this one?
yeah,
I
yeah.
mean, he's got all these other victims out here. He's got all these other things, and he's got a family that's under his control. He's got a woman that's had 5 children with him. Why would suddenly it's like, okay, now's the day that we're going to go ahead and say, okay, um, let's throw our life away
Yeah.
and do something so extreme that we that really brings attention. I mean, he knows all these messages exist. He has to
Yeah.
know
Yep.
the most extreme reaction to all of this is do what he's alleged to have done. So this is why I say that whatever he was intending to do, whatever people thought he was intending to do that were in the know, didn't go the way they thought it was going to go.
And my
And
question to all of what you're saying too, on top of that, why on this day? That was
yeah,
the day he was supposed to be turning
In
himself
court.
in.
Yep.
yes,
And he didn't have to. He was in court. He went to court. Court got canceled. So now
yes,
he's got a whole nother 30 days to
yep.
go back.
Yep.
Why? What happened? My gut was telling me he and Naziah got into some sort of an argument, because all of the text messages leading up, Naziah was probably, you could feel that there was a pulling away. He was
Yeah.
answering less. He was starting to treat her probably like how he treats the other women,
Yep.
be dismissive, be unavailable, not as attentive maybe. Um and she was like, why are you not calling me back? She's trying to get a hold of him, all of those things. So maybe they got into an argument, and that precipitated the unaliving versus a planned situation. And maybe it was the homemade pregnancy termination situation. I don't know, but I feel like it's just such a he was planning to be gone. I feel like if he wanted to take her out of here, he would have done it prior, because he didn't know he wasn't going to be turning himself in on that day. He knew he was facing a jail sentence, right? So if he had wanted to do it premeditated, he would have done it before the day he needed to go to jail. So he went to turn himself in. He didn't have to turn himself in. He's free for another 30 days. And
But he's
here's my,
also got someone in the car with him too.
you're
A
talking about
witness.
Cordell?
Yeah.
No, I'm just saying in general, he's hanging out with Naziah like he
Mm.
probably already was. Something occurred to make
Mhm.
him snap. Because how, if
Well,
she's doubled over in pain, how is she walking? Keep in mind, Jarvis's sister stated
Uh-huh.
she was walking back and forth into the gas station. We don't know if she was buying candy and treats, using the bathroom. We don't know what she was doing. She left school. She had cramps. It
okay,
is not
so
uncommon to have cramps when you're pregnant. So she could have been
Mm.
she's having cramps, and she's not feeling well. But then later she's walking back and forth into the gas station. She's doing whatever, going to the bathroom, she probably didn't go to the bathroom at least that one time, because Jarvis's sister was going to the bathroom. So maybe she went to go buy some candy or some chips or whatever. Um, and then later she's in Ypsilanti. There was no word that she seemed to be cramping or
Mm.
in pain. There's no word that corroborates, not to say it didn't happen, but cramps pass. And if you're
mhm,
pregnant, growing pains, when your uterus is expanding, you have cramps. Anyone who's
Yeah.
pregnant knows this.
right, right.
What
So,
got me
um,
was the actual, like, if you have a look at the photos of where the mechanic shop is, there is nothing around it. Nothing at
Mhm.
all. Like, it's really
Well,
isolated.
I feel
well,
like they
you've
got into an argument.
you've hit a point. So what I'm wondering is this, right? Was this a scenario where he realizes he's going to be not going to jail, and they decided to meet up for what would have been a normal trice because they were meeting up at places. I know he would go to her house or whatever, but in this case, they're meeting up. And then because this is a common area where Shannon and he would have met, did her sudden not coming home make her go out and look? And again, she claims she didn't contact him, but did she go out? Did Shannon actually go out looking? Did she show up at that motel, run into them, and
Did
find
did
him with?
Regina, did Talisha, did any of
Yep.
the other ones? It could like I
Mm.
think Shannon is the convenient, not to say Shannon doesn't have anything to do with it, but I think that sometimes, there could be multiple
Well,
parties
except the
responsible. There could be a
triggering
lot of
point that
different things.
well, the triggering point though would have been that Shannon and the grandma would have known that she was missing, and the idea that Shannon sat at home and didn't go searching would have potentially said, "Okay, she goes out and says, I think I might know where this girl's at," because maybe
I
they
just think they didn't care. I'm gonna be honest. I know it sounds callous. I don't think they cared enough. They were waiting for her to come home the next day. They probably thought she was being grown, which is what
mm,
they said in text messages on Facebook, is that
right
they thought she was out being grown.
being grown.
That's
Okay,
that's what her
What's
aunt
being
alluded to.
grown?
Acting like she's a woman, and like
yeah,
like
basically
like
out
she's
At
out with a
13.
she's out with a
out with a
man
man, yeah,
being
being grown.
doing what adult females do. I think that Shannon and Annette did not care.
Hmm.
I don't think they cared enough about her, just to be honest. I don't know that I'm not sure what hands they had in it, but I think that the excuse that they have for not looking and not reporting is because deep down inside they knew she was fooling around with Jarvis, and they just figured she was with Jarvis. They're not going to say we figured she was with Jarvis, but I think they figured she was with Jarvis and she was out doing whatever they probably assumed she was doing, and they figured she'll be home in the morning. She didn't come home in the morning,
And then the
and
concern
then there
set
goes
in.
the story of, well, she's never done this before. I mean, I'm sure if she was fooling around with Jarvis to the extent that we see, there were times where Neziah had to be unaccounted for.
Mhm.
And it was just, I mean, if they're sending her over to the shop and they know that that was going on, then there might have been a little pass through of, at least I know who she's with. I mean, I think the
Right.
assumption is that Shannon's mad because he's with Neziah. Maybe she wasn't mad because she knew at least who he was with, and that they were controlling the situation versus Regina, Talisha, this one, that one, Angel, blah blah blah. At least they would know and have a little more control over the
Mhm.
situation versus no control and not knowing.
Well,
I
the
just
theory
don't think that
goes
they
that
cared enough about her.
the
Mhm.
theory is that she did go back to Shannon's house to, for whatever reason, to collect something, and that's when Shannon actually found out about the pregnancy and lost her shit. That's what's been put
I
out there.
think she knew before then. I mean, if she was 5 or 6 months pregnant,
Yeah.
you've got young ladies in the house. She needs to have, they say, okay, so she was asking Jarvis for sanitary napkins
Mm.
and,
Yep,
supplies.
yep, yep.
Um, Shannon knew very well that she was sharing Jarvis with other women, and I
Mhm.
think she also knew that she was lining up her daughter and her niece to participate in the foolishness and the
Oh,
abuse. So I don't think anywhere, shape, or form that they were unaware of what was going on with Jarvis. I don't buy that part of the story. I can't factor that into my
yeah.
thoughts of the story because I feel like they were well aware. It's like, again, Jennifer, Jen Soto playing like she didn't understand what
Oh,
was going on with
yeah.
Stefan and
Yeah, no,
Madeline.
go and jump in
You know
bed.
what I
Yeah,
mean?
no worries.
Like Shannon, as sick as it is for us normal folk, this was normal for them because this
Yeah.
is a family, and I'm talking about under Annette's roof. I'm not talking about the
Mm.
extended family of all the people who called and reported. I'm talking about under Annette's household. This was how they operated. This is a grandmother who was abused, and she allowed, and if that what they say is true, she was sleeping with Jarvis too. Annette, and then so Shannon was sleeping with Jarvis. Marquita slept with Jarvis. Marquita's current boyfriend slept with like this is a very incestuous, disgusting
So
situation going on here.
so
So
your theory would be then, or at least what you think would have happened is that what is it then? Because I think the reason why it's kind of come up that Jarvis was trying to do something to get that there was some sort of plan in effect, which is what I based it on, is the text messages. That's like, are we still going to do this? So the question, that's why I kind of got the impression that said that they probably did know, the grandma and the daughter, and they or the grand, well, I guess it's the grandmother's daughter, the grandmother and the aunt, and that it was kind of like, Jarvis, take care of this problem. Like,
Hmm.
because if you don't and you go to jail and this baby is had and Nosiah talks, or, because
That's what
obviously
I was thinking.
a
she
DNA
said
Found out how
maybe
test,
that
Nasiah
income
didn't
for
want
the
to have.
grandmother.
Maybe she wanted to keep her baby.
well, um, that's
Like the
possible. Yeah,
assumption is that she was a willing participant in this
right,
home style abortion. Well, excuse me, unaliving of the termination of the pregnancy, right? It's the assumption is that she would have been okay with that. It's
right.
not, there's I mean, just like Annette had a baby at what, very early.
Mhm.
Um, it's quite possible that Naziah would have wanted to keep her baby. We don't know that she didn't want to keep her
No,
baby. So
Right.
whether Jarvis was researching home remedies or not doesn't mean she was a willing participant.
no, no,
Well,
not at all.
then the question would be, though, I think for everyone is, what was she, because she was aware something was going to be happening that afternoon when she went with Jarvis. So the question is, why did she show up? Why did she reach out? Why did she go? And if she thought it was going to be that, maybe she thought she was going to talk him out of it. And then the other question is if that was what he was intending to do, and this is the other problem, like you said, you bring up a very good point. He thought when he was going to court that day, he was
Uh-huh.
going in. So why would this have not occurred the day before? Why would this have
Or
not
weeks
occurred days before
before.
or weeks
Yep.
before if that's
Right.
truly what it was all about? Which
What?
again comes back to the point to say, to me, that this might have been about a hookup, them hooking up, and that I believe that my theory on it is that the grandma and the aunt find out about this, and then they basically tell her, all right, you need to stay away from Jarvis. Because remember, in the messages, it was clear he was coming back, he was sneaking into the house, and they realized they can't do that anymore. So he convinces her to meet up with him and go over there. And like you said, there's messages out there and chats and things that are saying that they thought she was being grown. Well, that would be that maybe they thought she was being grown, and then the aunt would know where to go. And then when she shows up at the hotel, is there
All
some
right.
sort of
Let me
confrontation or something?
put
But
this
then,
out there then.
where would the witnesses be at the hotel if there was a confrontation?
Let
Which
me
throws
put
that
this
all
out
out.
there.
I don't know.
What if, and I'm just putting it out there, what if Naziah was a source of income for the grandmother and Jarvis was paying that income and he was going into prison that day and he had that day, you got to sort this shit out before you go in?
Well, except that Jody, he should have already been. The point is like he went to court that morning,
Oh, it was
and
in the morning, was it? Okay.
the court gave him 30 days because he told the court that he asked for a continuance on when he had the self-report, and he knew he had the self-report in February, and they basically told him, when you come, there's not going to be any more extensions. But he had to do time that was going to keep him in jail until December.
It
And
was
if
like a
she's
gun
five,
charge. It
yeah,
was a
and if
gun
she
charge. Mhm.
correct, and he had to go to he said he had a charge in another county that he had to work out. And
Mm-hmm.
basically, his defense attorney said, "Listen, either because again, money up there is a big deal in Detroit." They said, "Listen, if you take him into custody today, then it will be on the city of Detroit will have to bear the cost to transport into that county." And Jarvis promised that he would go up there, take care of that charge, get it taken care of, and that way they would not have to transfer him up there, because it wasn't going to result in what was going on up there was not going to result in him going to jail. It was going to be like a fine and things. But they said instead of him having to appear up there and go through all the costs of transport, they decided to let him self-report since he'd already shown up that day, and he got out and had a new 30-day additional time on life. So the question is everybody that says, well, okay, today is the day, that should have been the day before or the day before or the
I
day
think there
before.
was an argument. I think that the adults were
Mhm.
conspiring. Let's go with the this isn't necessarily my theory, but let's just go with the adults were conspiring. Let's say the adults, Shannon,
Mhm.
Annette, and Jarvis were conspiring. They were aware she was pregnant. Okay. And Naziah is thinking she's going to go see Bay forever. That's how he was saved in her phone.
Yeah.
She's going to go see Bay. And Bay starts to talk to her about how he doesn't want her baby and she's feeling more rejected. She's mad, she's
Mhm.
upset, she's hurt, and they have an argument because if he stabbed her as many times as her jacket appears that she got stabbed, this is some sort of rage. He's got some
Yeah.
sort of untapped
But there
rage, some
wasn't that
sort of
much blood on
anger.
there, was there?
But it was out in the water. It was out in the open for a
Yeah.
month, so you've got rainstorms and things, so I guess there was residual blood that
Where
was
there was like,
embedded
yeah,
into the fabric, but as far as, like, the fresh whenever it happened,
it
probably
was a
not as much.
substantial amount too. You heard the prosecutor say it was
Right.
like 15 spots. Oh, I mean, it was pretty covered in blood. But yeah,
So
she,
if he
Franny's
raged on
correct. It was
her
out in the elements.
if he raged on her, um then and he's mad not just at her but at life at the life he's created for, you know what I mean? He's
Mhm.
this could have been his first unaliving, and
Mhm.
he's got rage built up. He clearly has some sort of misogyny type attributes.
Well, and I
He's
think,
he's a crazy person in
yeah.
the make, you know what I mean? Like he's got issues. So I really feel like the randomness of the, even though it doesn't seem random, people are like, "Oh, it's not random." It is random because he if he wanted
In the
her
big
gone,
scam, yeah.
he would have done it before the day
Yep.
he was supposed to be
Yep.
in jail
Uh-huh.
and didn't know he wasn't going to be in jail. I think that the adults were trying to figure out a way to have him not go to jail for life, which would be Naziah and her baby.
Mhm.
And she comes to the realization of the cold reality that he really doesn't love her as much as she loves him, because if you
Yep.
listen to the text messages,
Uh-huh.
she unfortunately believes that he loves her, and he only loves himself. He's a narcissist, and
Mhm.
even if he had some sort of weird love for her,
Yeah.
it doesn't replace the love that he has for himself and for him to get his way. And they had to have had some sort of a fight. I think that
Yep.
they had an argument,
Yep.
a fight. She wasn't
Mhm.
being cooperative. She wasn't wanting to be compliant. I think that there's a possibility there's so many other women at play. Why was Shannon mad today versus another time? Like, Shannon should
Mhm.
have been mad when she found out initially. Like, I find it hard to believe that she found out about the situation and the pregnancy and everything all at one day. That didn't happen all in one day. It couldn't have. I think they were turning a blind eye, and they knew what was going on with Jarvis, because I think she would have rather had him in the basement and doing what she already had done to her and her sister and everybody else. She knows he's abusing her daughter. There have been CPS cases. We have to, like, she knew he was doing things.
Mm.
Mhm.
So there's no way she
Well,
just found out when
well,
you
so
have
then,
other CPS cases saying that he's been violating other girls.
with your theory in mind, basically what you're saying is he would have had to have had help because of some sort with people involved in this, because clearly we know that there was no physical evidence found in that hotel room that
Mhm.
indicated any
Or the
struggle occurred.
car,
There was
except
nothing
for
in the
glasses.
car.
Mhm.
So he had to have taken her somewhere else. We know on the riverbed there was nothing because they searched that thoroughly. So we would assume then that the clothes were put there after, because I found it interesting the timing of those clothes, that they were sitting
Uh-huh.
there for like 2 months, and yet they didn't have the indication that they'd
Yep.
been sitting there for 2 months. Yet he had gone to jail at the beginning of February. So
Uh-huh.
if you listen to the testimony of Officer Wyatt, he says, yeah, it didn't look like they'd been sitting out there for 2 months.
Yeah, there wasn't
I
any
mean, there was
lightning.
wetness to them, but they were
Mhm.
not like you would
Sun
expect
bleached. Yep.
2 months, 2 months of sitting out.
Yep.
So that would mean then that he has co-conspirators out here
Mhm.
that were aware of what occurred, that were aware that he would have taken her. But the question is, like, because to me, what I think may have happened in a sense is, was it a stabbing or could it have been a strangulation? And because that would account for the lack of physical evidence in the
Mhm.
hotel room.
Mhm.
Because if they're there in the hotel room, they're talking. I mean, but
It could have been a
again,
backhander that knocked her out, and
Well, I think
There was so much time that went by before
yeah,
they went to the hotel.
yeah,
So, are there notes from housekeeping? Did he
mhm,
collect all the sheets?
yeah.
It was a month before they
Well,
got to
no,
that hotel room. So, did they
what
collect the sheets? Were there
they
any
Yeah, but
did,
notes?
that
they
he
did.
was known to
That
frequent
Okay.
was
that.
in the
Maybe
preliminary
they're
hearing.
lying.
They did.
They got
Maybe they're covering.
They did check the sheets, or at least allegedly check the sheets.
Yeah.
Now, again, the amount of time that had passed when they were doing all of this was substantial. But the bottom line is in that room, if there was a stabbing, like the state
You
said,
would know.
it would have been on the floor. There's no way he
Yeah.
covered that
right, the
up.
No.
mattress,
No.
the
Like,
sheets
like
would have
Yeah.
been gone by then.
that's they checked the mattress, but
Yeah,
see,
the mattress, the carpet.
that's the problem, is that he's not some mastermind who's able to
No.
clean up
Course
blood
not.
to a
No.
point that it's untraceable. If it was so, if a stabbing occurred, it didn't happen at the hotel.
So
And it was
maybe
Um,
room
she never made it into
69.
the hotel. Maybe she was at the hotel in the trunk.
mhm.
And he could have, I mean, we just don't,
No.
like Jarvis, it's one of those, just because he's never been caught doesn't mean he hasn't done this before. So
Uh-huh.
at the end of the day,
Did they say in the preliminary hearing, how did he get to the Latricia's house? Did he walk there?
He swapped cars.
Oh,
He
they
swapped cars
did
with
swapped
her.
he?
cars.
He told her that he needed a car for something to do with his son and took her car.
And why did he not want to have his car?
I don't think
'Cause-
there was a seat in it, maybe. I don't know. But it was a car swap.
Gotcha. So, and they
And then he
searched
went to
it.
visit Regina
Yeah. Well,
after
I was
that.
gonna say they searched this. That's what I've always been in my mind. Is like, where was she at during all these visits? So
Yeah.
was she back at the Parkview? Because he went to the Parkview first
And
and
who's
checked
going to
in.
go visiting when you've just done that to someone? Like, you
Or did
leave.
he drop? What I'm getting at is, did he drop Naziah off with someone and then go out and start trying to create alibis?
Maybe
Yes,
she might have
that's what
still
the
been in the
story
car.
is. Yes. The story is that he dropped her back at Shannon's, then she lost her shit, and Shannon
Well, except
did the
that I
job,
think the
but
problem with
Annette
all
was
that,
covering for them.
what the problem? Well, see, here's the thing, though, Jody. The problem with that theory is there's no evidence that his phone ever went near Shannon's.
He
What
could have
Yeah.
I'm
left it
saying
at the shop.
is that what there was a plan in place. So my thing is, did he drop and he got a hotel room at the Parkview for reasons we still don't
Or
understand? And
Park
then he
Crest. There's
or
someone
Park
who's
Yeah,
going
Crest,
to
yeah,
be in
yeah.
your comments who's going to be
yeah.
Oh,
like,
sorry, Park Crest, yeah.
keep saying
So
Park
and
Crest.
and he didn't return back there till I think it was 11:30 and stayed there
Uh-huh.
till almost 1. So what was there someone there that he left Naziah with that maybe took care of this problem for him?
Well,
You
there was
know,
also half an hour
and then they
from
got
9
back
to
together.
9:30 when
Mm,
Cordell left the
yeah,
mechanics workshop before he checked into the hotel.
right.
He could have left the
Well,
phone there.
he could have. I mean, it's possible he could have left the phone. You're right. But my point is that he took it with him everywhere else, so it would really not make sense that he would just be like, "I'm going to leave the phone,"
Hmm.
because remember, he's not thinking that he needs to leave his phone anywhere if Shannon does this unexpectedly, because he's
And
not
why
thinking
couldn't
she's
we
going to
get any
die.
footage from that hotel of her going in?
But
Well,
Why
why
was
because
it
does
the
why does
hotel?
everyone think it's Shannon? I'm not trying to excuse Shannon. I think Shannon and Annette play a major role, but there were so many other women, and there was someone who they did want questioning. Is it Angelica or Angela, who didn't even show up for her police interview? There
Shannon
was
takes the place of Annette in that situation. She's like the matriarch of, like, she's the head of the women,
I know, but I
so
think
to speak.
I think that Shannon this is a woman who's had 5 kids with a guy over a span of a decade, and
yeah,
Mm.
he's had many other children. Why is she now all of a sudden upset because it's Naziah when in theory she has offered up her own daughter? So
yeah,
why, like, that would have to make some sort of sense. She is checked out as far as what he's doing. They don't have a serious relationship. I think she has accepted a lot from this guy, and I don't know that she is as angry as you guys would, as anyone out here on the internet would want to think. I don't know that she cared like that. I think that she was very cold, very callous. I think
mhm,
that she had she had more rage towards Jarvis than I think her own niece. I think that it's safe
Maybe
to
that's the
think that
motive.
I think that some women would be very upset, but I don't know that I just don't know that there's not another woman involved. And they also
Well,
mentioned that someone did not show up for their interview. Was it Angelia? There's another baby mom out there who was asked to come in for an interview and she no showed.
yeah, but see, that's why I'm with you on this, Fran, because I think that you got something here in the sense that Shannon, it makes sense what you're saying, but I'm wondering now: did he gets this hotel room and puts it in his name, right?
Hmm.
And did he have it? Was that other woman there to try to do something for him? Jarvis was a guy who manipulated women. He wasn't going to do his own
Right.
dirty
He had a
work
lot
himself.
of women who were
Mm.
willing to do his bidding, and there were a lot of
So
women who could be upset with him.
did she?
Absolutely.
Did this woman? Was she left with the desire to say, "Listen, you're going to do whatever we're going to do to try to whatever," and he goes about his business because he knows he's going to have to come back and he's going to help dispose of the body. But that's why
It's
he's off
possible.
getting cars and he leaves Naziah with this lady. Now, Naziah has no idea what's really going on at this moment, but that lady does it or whatever they're planning because he realizes I got to take care of this problem. Because my thought is Naziah struck me as the type who would not flinch to tell him, if you leave me, Jarvis, I got your child in me and I'll talk to the police. I'll get you thrown in
She's
jail for the rest of your
she's
life.
been raised by Annette and Shannon. You don't
Yeah.
I don't think that she was my impression is she probably was a very sweet girl, but this is also a young lady who was raised under Annette and
Uh-huh.
Shannon. Are we starting to think that she doesn't know how to tell people a piece of her mind?
Right.
I'm
Well,
sure
you could
she
tell that in the text
probably
messages.
I'm
Mm.
sure she's probably like, "Look," and maybe she wanted to keep her baby.
Mm-hmm.
Like, she didn't say anything about, well, I guess she was looking for morning afters and things like that because I don't think I mean, again, she's 13, so she
Mm-hmm.
doesn't know everything. She's not completely savvy, but I think she definitely had her own mind. I don't know. I mean, I'm going to be honest, I haven't spent a lot of time really thinking about like how it
No,
happened per se, but I
but it just
just
doesn't make sense.
think it doesn't make sense yet and the pieces haven't fit together. I just think that something happened on the 9th to make him
Yeah,
snap or him, or it was the termination, like like a failed termination that yielded in her
could have been an accident.
dying potentially, but based on the clothing, it seems like something different happened to her. So if it was a rage situation, it probably was precipitated by an argument. And I don't know if Shannon would have done that. It could have been one of the other baby moms because there are plenty of people out. We see this all the time, unfortunately. There are plenty of people who don't mind rolling up their sleeves to help someone do something
Mm.
awful.
There
So
was
I
two
don't
people
know.
apparently involved. It wasn't just Shannon; it was someone else. And the
Mm-hmm.
reason that Annette delayed the 24 hours was to cover them.
Yeah, I don't it could have been
Apparently,
Shannon, it could have been I don't know. I really think Annette and Shannon really give they don't care.
Well, I
I'm
think
just gonna be honest. I don't think they care enough.
it
I think
resonates with me, though, Fran, what you were saying. I really think that what you're talking about is correct in the sense of their mindset, and that would explain what they're covering up. What they're covering up is their own negligence in the idea that they
yeah, they're
did not
covering up for
react,
foster
yep.
care checks, they're covering
and
up for SSI
and
checks,
they
they're covering up for Section 8, they're covering up for welfare, they're covering up for all of the income
Uh-huh.
that is
yeah,
generated by having these children
yeah.
under that roof.
And
Yep.
they
Okay?
didn't do what they were supposed to do, which puts all that in jeopardy. Which is why
Yep.
they're
They
saying,
turned a
"Oh,
blind eye to a young lady having an affair with a 40-year-old
yeah,
man and a
Yep.
yeah."
40-year-old man taking advantage of her that is also conveniently sleeping with her aunt. And it's like
And
they
when
were
she,
they were afraid to be exposed for being
yeah.
sick and demented and gross.
And when she didn't show up, it wasn't like you said. In that what they've said or other people have said, they said is they thought she was out being grown. They thought she was out doing her thing, and they weren't concerned until the next morning when she didn't show up. And then, interestingly enough, who does
Mm.
Shannon reach out to but Jarvis and
Why
says, "Have you seen
Jarvis?
Isaiah?"
Yeah.
Jarvis
Exactly.
barely calls you anyway. What did
Yeah.
you think Jarvis was putting on his Superman cape to come help you
Yeah.
find? He doesn't even come check on his own
Which
Yeah.
bed
kids.
was he getting
Yeah.
out of to come rescue
She
you, Shannon?
she said
Yeah.
that her kids were begging her to call him.
Yeah.
Why would you call him? Why
Yeah.
would you call him of all people?
and that would fit with the lineup that's what they thought was going on. Then she suspiciously doesn't show up, and then they go to the school and they make a report, and they're thinking they go to the school first because they think she's just out, being wild and not coming home. And then of course this thing goes to a totally different
And then you've
direction.
got Angry Mom. Who was that? The one, was it Talacia Davis, the one with the
Yeah.
Sentra? She was clearly pissed. She's clearly pissed. He borrowed her car. He didn't come back until the morning. Then she lets him borrow the car again. She doesn't know why. Obviously, he's using her car to dispose of a body. Like, she doesn't seem bothered at all. She seems more pissed. She's got a 2-year-old with this guy. It's weird. He's got a lot of women who are pissed. I would say do a lineup of all of these women. Then you're going to find who helped him. Shannon is the convenient bad guy because she's a bad guy. Annette, another convenient bad guy because what? She's a bad guy. A lot of these people are bad guys, but I don't know if it was Shannon and Annette that were there on the scene to do that. I just think they know enough to be dangerous, and they
Yep.
know enough to be scared that this could send them to jail, and that's why they're not talking.
Yep.
I think
Well,
they know enough. They know something happened,
mm,
and because
They know more than what they're saying for sure.
this man's had so many babies and is sleeping with so many
Yeah.
women, all of a sudden you're going to be mad when like this is not the first kind of semi-incestuous type situation going on under that roof.
And
Well,
nearly
There's
that's
been
every
a
one
lot
of
of
them
that
have him
type
in
of
court.
activity.
Nearly every one of them have him in court for not paying child support.
and that's the overwhelming theme that's been coming out that people are talking about now, saying that that is something that in that family was standard, and that there might have been other people that Desire, other older men that Desire had been with at different times,
Yep.
because that was just part of the coming of age, part of the process of growing up, and
Mhm.
nobody thought it was strange like we might, not seeing that as, not having family members that have gone, like, it's generational with them. It's
Yep.
just a generational.
Right, and this is nothing new. We saw
Indoctrinated.
this out, no offense to anyone out west, like, but that Yearning for Zion Ranch, there was a lot
Mhm.
of weird stuff going on out there with
Yeah.
the
Is that the
elders.
cult?
There was a cult, yeah, and I mean, there's a lot, unfortunately, there's a lot going on at our neighbors' houses we just don't know enough about. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
You see
For
you see
certain.
people coming in and out, but you don't know what's going on behind closed doors.
Yep.
You don't know what's being accepted. You don't know what's being, what people are turning a blind eye to. I think unfortunately Naziah got, I just, the fact that Janiyah, her cousin, was allegedly involved. They were talking to another cousin, I guess Marquita's daughter, who said she saw something, and who's the one who testified. I think that was Marquita's daughter. So if you're paying
I
attention to
remember.
what's going on Facebook, the minor that testified that the prosecutor discussed, that was another one of Naziah's cousins. That was Marquita's child, I believe, because there was a man who stepped forward on Facebook who stated that the girl who testified was his daughter, but Jarvis never touched her. He was a witness. She was a witness to a act. And that was what the prosecutor referred to as the minor who testified, who said she saw a certain G to G contact.
Mhm.
Mm.
And that was that. There was a lot going on. How did the little girl how did the prosecutors come to get testimony from this little girl? And Marquita, like, when did Marquita find out about this? When did this
Mhm.
ever get reported to the police? Like, there
Uh-huh.
was a lot going on with these children that Jarvis was having a lot of leeway to do,
Yep.
and he wasn't even arrested. He only got called out about this when Naziah disappeared. So it
Uh-huh.
would stand to reason that and I'm talking about Annette's children
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
her line of kids, this was something that was acceptable. This is
Yep.
something that they allowed. I do not believe that Shannon just got mad
Yep.
on January 9th and flipped a switch. I think that she turned a blind eye and something happened that night. She was in Jarvis's hands, and Jarvis and some other woman that he deals with maybe the one who didn't show up for questioning. There's something else going on here. I just think that Annette and Shannon are real easy to use as the culprit, but I don't know that they are culprits. They are definitely, complicit and all of that, but I don't know that they're the ones that helped him that night. That's why I don't think it's coming together. I'm just wondering, when the police call you about a murder investigation, why you don't show up. That's who I would want to hear from, is that Angelia or Angelica, the other mom who did not show. And
Well,
they made a point of putting
did
that on the record that
yeah,
she
but
didn't show up.
did she assert her Fifth Amendment privilege to not show
I'm
up, or
not
did she?
sure.
Yeah,
I'm not
okay.
sure.
I didn't
Why
even know
they
about
didn't
that
go
later.
get her? Yeah. They
Well,
mentioned it.
the
Yeah.
thing, was she subpoenaed, or was she just asked to come down and give a statement?
She was asked for a police interview and she
Okay.
did not show up.
Well, yeah. See, they're not going to go down and get her necessarily because, of course, it's voluntary to give a statement. So now they can use that against her as, in their opinion of it raising suspicion in their eyes. But the fact that she didn't show up, obviously, if she didn't show up, she didn't assert anything. But she's basically, by not showing up, asserting her right to remain silent. So in that instance, that should definitely trigger additional investigation. But the missing link to all of this is Jarvis Butts. And I think in order to go after her, they're going to have to get him to take a plea and talk about what actually happened.
Right.
And not doing that, which is why the state, if you see, this is why the state has what they have, and they're going to take it to the jury and say, this is a story we're going to tell.
Yeah,
He
I
went to these
agree.
places, and there's enough there. And this is the scary part. I mean, for people that want to know what actually happened. And this is the interesting thing about courts. Courts in trials are not necessarily reality. It's what the state can prove.
Right.
So the state's going to take their evidence and say, what we've proven is this guy was responsible. They're not going to get into all the other details. Now, if he's convicted under the theory that we heard in the preliminary hearing that we just all heard them lay out, we never find out about the other people. There's never any additional investigations.
Right. Like,
There's
here's a quick follow-up for you guys. So Wilshire, I'm not sure who lives at Wilshire, but whenever he stopped at
I can
Wilshire,
tell you.
it's
That's
quite
that's
possible.
Letitia. That's
That's
the
Letitia.
yep,
That's
yep.
okay. That's the Nissan Sentra. Nissan Sentra.
Yes, yes, yes.
Somewhere along that route, something happened.
Yep.
I think that the reason why people want to know, why is Annette and Shannon not arrested, because they don't have any proof that they participated in anything other than being awful mothers and caregivers. Okay. And also potentially having some knowledge. Along his route that night, something happened to Naziah, and one of those women, we know specifically that Naziah, now we don't know, I don't know about, like, did the bloodhounds track Naziah into the vehicle? Did they say that there was tracking of Naziah in that Sentra?
No, there
We know
was
that the
not.
Just
car
the
was,
glasses.
we know
Just
the
the
Yeah,
glasses.
glasses.
Yeah, there was not. That's the thing.
Okay.
That's why that's the confusing part about
Yeah.
everything
That they didn't
is
tell us, or that they didn't track it?
no, it did
There was
not.
nothing.
The dog did not respond to that vehicle, that she was in the
Okay.
vehicle, except there were
So
glasses in there. So those are where the conflicts
So
have
that could have
been.
been that could have been just a dump. That could have just been like, threw her stuff in the back. That could have been
Yeah,
where he threw her shoes and her clothes. It doesn't
yeah.
necessarily mean that he used that to get rid of her. It could have been part of his network of vehicles. It's like he had his own Turo fleet. He could park a car here, and then he could go and then park another car. He was all over the place.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So
He did have. He was on Toro. I didn't
no,
know
I'm
that.
not. I'm saying he had his own, like,
Oh,
just as a
oh,
joke. It's
oh!
like
I got
he
you.
had
Oh,
his
well, I
own.
thought.
He had his
Oh,
like
I
his
thought.
own fleet of cars at his access. You know what I
I
mean?
got you.
He'd
Got you.
park here, go get
Yeah.
another car, park
Right.
there, go get another car. Like, it was just absolutely insane. I think somewhere along that route, and I think that's why the tracking is so important,
Mhm.
is that someone on that route helped him, one of those women. And it's quite possible that maybe Nissan Sentra, I keep calling her Nissan Sentra, but maybe Nissan Sentra knows more than
Well,
what she's letting on.
the
'Cause she
question
was
would be
very
then.
angry.
The question would be then, why in the world did he go get that hotel room if something happened there?
Exactly. When he spent half the night out with two different baby mamas.
Why would? And that's the part that just is confusing to me.
Yeah.
And then he goes there, then he's there for 2.5 hours, which is why
Yeah.
the state is able to argue that says whatever happened during that time. And then none of the women say they saw. Now nobody's seeing Neziah, even though everybody leading up to Cordell leaving sees her. Now she's unseen. Now no one knows where she's at, which is why I felt like the park crest was a dumping place for Neziah to say, or not a dumping place, but a place that
Yes.
he
I mean,
leaves her there.
it could have been the trash dumpster.
He's a great customer. We'll look after him.
Well, he leaves there like that. Maybe if there was someone, if something was going to be happening, or someone was helping him, or there was, because it's clear he was through his web searches, which is where everybody thinks that he was interested in terminating the pregnancy. So to me, it would behoove me to think that he's saying, "All right, listen, I got a friend. She's going to help you do this," and maybe Neziah does. Maybe you're correct. She wanted to keep the baby, or in this case, whatever they do goes terribly wrong. Whatever these at-home remedies that they're going to attempt to do. Now, radiator fluid would be something that maybe they would attempt because he's a mechanic and he would have full access to stuff like that. But he goes in and does that, and then he comes back to the hotel. Now, the question is, why is he out getting cars and moving about? To me, I don't know. I mean, that's what doesn't make sense. But we know he stops moving around at 11:30. And we know he's at that hotel, at least his phone does.
His phone is, yeah.
And we know that, and here's the thing, if something would have happened and we say, okay, well, maybe he was creating an alibi, well, then wouldn't he have just left his phone at the hotel the whole night?
Well,
and not left at 1:30 in the morning?
It was an afterthought from him. This is what the supposed brother said, that he went out and deliberately did that to create an alibi because he knew that they would frame him and he was the last person seen with her picking her up from school.
Well, Jody, what this sounds like is that the brother is previewing what the defense is going to try to float to the jury, and they're going to try to go after the mother and the aunt on cross. But that I don't think really has any bearing in the evidence or the reality of the situation. But that's what a defense attorney, because remember, when he goes on trial, it's not about the truth, it's about doubt.
Yeah.
And that's the problem in this case is what we have here is we have a guy who absolutely was inappropriate with this young lady. But the question is, did he take her life? And maybe he did, but was it an intentional act?
Yeah.
And was it reckless? Was it this? Because again,
to get to first degree,
when the defense goes full throttle at this, the state is going to have to come with evidence to say that he was the one responsible, that he did all these things.
No evidence.
Well, it's going to be.
No matter what, if he was trying to do a homemade termination, that is probably I'm assuming some sort of a felony. And when a felony death occurs during a felony, that is automatically a first degree. So whether he intended to do it or not, if it was a result of another felony, he's still going away for life.
Well, yeah, because it would actually be what it would be is feticide. So because he was in the commission of doing that, of trying to kill the baby, and the baby would be recognized. And then in the process of that, that would be, but the question is, right now, the charges don't reflect that. So that's the problem. See, they have to charge him that way, and they haven't charged him that way. What they charged him with is first degree as an intentional act that he stabbed her.
I think they got into it. I really do. I think they had an argument over something because it was getting hot in those text messages about her feeling a little like he was pulling away. Like there was just, there was a little bit of distance.
Well, that's what I believe. That's what I believe the state will go to the trial with. And I think they're going to go and they're going to tell the story that they were getting together, that he was probably going to take another run at her, trying to get rid of the pregnancy. And he gets this hotel room and thinks, okay, look, we need to do this tonight. I'm going to be going. I mean, this is a story they're going to tell, whether this is the actual situation. But, and then something, like you said, something happens. And at some stage, an altercation occurs. Now, a gaping hole in that theory will be the lack of physical evidence to support that. But the state's going to say, well, we have a sweatshirt and we have all this evidence that he was the last person to be with her and that she was there with him at 8 o'clock or nearly 9 o'clock. And then she's never seen again. Do I think it'll be enough that a jury will convict him? I think it would be in this case, because once you get through all the messages and the lead up,
they're going to convict him on that alone.
But does it help get the actual answers to those who are really responsible? No, it doesn't. But that's just how these things go, because sometimes it would take him confessing and
I
giving us that.
wonder if they are still, I mean, the people of Detroit would know if they're still executing search warrants. Like, has anyone's house been searched? Because when they said that, I forget her name, Miss Davis and the girl with the Nissan Sentra, um, both of them, when the police came. Like, they came, we got a search warrant, boom. There was no, we're asking to come in. They came and searched the homes. It's quite possible that they could still be
Oh, they are.
searching.
In
Yeah,
fact, I have
well,
a news clip that's talking about that they're because they're looking into, they're investigating all around this thing, because they're investigating now. This was like 11 days ago. There's a headline that says years before the case, CPS warned repeatedly. So they're investigating what people
yeah,
knew.
can you show
What
that one? Because that's the one
Yeah.
I was talking about.
Yep.
Like, there's no way Shannon didn't know that Naziah had been touched, that another child had been
Yep.
touched in the household. It was documented, and
April 22.
what was
No,
so
23.
problematic with Jernell, because Jernell, Annette's half sister, was really upset at the
Yeah.
follow up and follow through, and also just the dialogue surrounding that they never tried to do anything, because they did. They filed report after report after report, and nothing was really done in terms of follow up to protect the
Yeah.
kids. And their impression was that they were not going to allow this type of person to have access to the kids, but then they find out that
But they
they
did.
actually
Yep.
were turning a blind eye.
Well, yeah. So here it is. This is the report you're talking about, I think.
Right now, Jarvis Butts is awaiting trial for the murder and sexual abuse of Naziah Harris.
After listening to days of testimony last month, a judge called Butts a monster and said that opportunities to protect the 13-year-old girl were missed. Tonight, the 7 investigators are revealing years of warnings that preceded Butts' alleged crimes.
Warnings that family members say were made to Children's Protective Services that could have saved Naziah's life. Here's what 7 investigator Ross Jones has uncovered.
You look at that face, and you do not see the horrors that she had gone through in her short life. The exploitation, the molestations, the sexual abuse, and the pregnancy that she was concealing.
Years before Jarvis Butts would be charged by Wayne County's prosecutor, accused of killing and sexually abusing 13-year-old Naziah Harris, Harris's own relatives say they saw the warning signs and told anyone who would listen.
So that at that point, I was like,
So that's Annette's sister, her half sister.
I tried not just once,
That's
but
a
multiple
cousin,
times
Kiwana.
for them to take us serious, take me serious in what I was saying.
Kiwana Morton and her cousin Jernell are both relatives of Naziah Harris. In February of 2022, Jernell says she learned of allegations of improper touching involving Butts and other small children. She says she was told about the claims while talking to her niece, Jarvis Butts' girlfriend, and that the alleged victims were Naziah Harris and 2 other children.
I was just like, oh my God, I was not crazy. This needs to be looked into.
She says she took the claim seriously in part because Butts was on the sex offender registry, having spent more than 8 years in prison for third-degree criminal sexual conduct. She didn't alert authorities at first because she believed her niece would notify police. But weeks later, Jernell did notify Child Protective Services. Her complaint came in on April 13, 2022. There was an incident at a birthday party, the complaint reads. One of the children that attended the party accused Jarvis of sexual abuse. Naziah, and name withheld, reported that Jarvis touched both of them inappropriately as well. Jarvis touched, name withheld, in her private area, and it hurt. Jernell made the complaint over the phone.
They basically told me if they needed me for anything else, they would reach out.
The next day, Jernell would receive a text from her niece, Butts' girlfriend, confirming that CPS had contacted her. CPS called me, the text reads. They called about the well-being of my kids. Then they called back to get Jarvis info. A CPS spokeswoman would not tell 7 News Detroit if investigators ever questioned Naziah Harris after receiving the complaint. But we do know it wasn't the only complaint filed with CPS, naming Jarvis Butts.
And it wasn't easy for me to call protective services just because of the horror stories that you hear.
Kawana Morton said she heard about the same allegations against Butts from a conversation with his girlfriend. 2 months after her cousins called to CPS, she would file her own complaint.
I told them that there's a problem and they need to be aware of it. I am 90% sure that there's sexual abuse going on within the home.
Did you specifically mention Jarvis by name?
Yes, absolutely.
Internal CPS records we obtained show that investigators looked into that complaint, conducting a face-to-face interview with Butts, who strongly denied the allegation. A forensic interview was conducted with the alleged victim, and no disclosures were made. CPS said the home was clean and free of observed safety concerns. The allegation was denied, assigned a low-risk level. These are 2 complaints of at least 5 filed with CPS since 2015, naming Jarvis Butts. They allege concerns about possible molestation, physical abuse, or living conditions. Some of the complaints are generic, and none would ultimately substantiate that Butts was improperly touching children. Just over a year after the last complaint on record, Butts would be charged with sexually assaulting and murdering Neziah Harris.
I'm brokenhearted because this could have been prevented. All of it. All of it could have been prevented.
Attorneys for Jarvis Butts declined comment for this story, citing his pending criminal case. As for CPS, a spokeswoman for the Department of Health and Human Services said that their hearts go out to the family and friends of Neziah Harris. It says that state and federal laws prohibit them from commenting on what we just reported, but that they are committed to ensuring the health and safety of all children. I'm Ross Jones, 7 News, Detroit.
All right. So, wow. As you can
Awful,
see,
right?
yeah, that is awful. I mean, but I think it kind of speaks to to what we were at, what we were talking about, which was, are they still investigating? And I think that shows that yes, there are, at least the news agencies are, and I would imagine that the police are still investigating as well. Because again, like I said, I think every person that was called to testify in that courtroom was called under the idea that they were having to verify and confirm that Neziah Harris was deceased. So tracking her movements, tracking Jarvis's movements, and verifying all of that is why they were brought in. The police now have working sworn statements from every single one of those women that came in, every single family member that came in, and I don't believe it was any coincidence that they did that to put them under direct examination and then cross-examination by Jarvis's attorneys. So I think they're definitely still working. I definitely do.
I agree. I think also what they did too was establish on the record that there is a network of people that will do Jarvis's bidding.
Mm-hmm.
He called Cordell. Hey, Cordell, can you get so-and-so's car in? I need you to find my phone. Hey, baby mom with the 2-year-old in the Nissan Sentra, I need to borrow your car for 2 days. I'm not going to tell you. There's a young lady who will eventually come up missing, and you will have had her eyeglasses in your car, but yet you won't know about that because I'm going to snatch it away from you and all those things. I'm going to need another one to drive me to turn myself in, and I'm going to use your vehicle to hide my phone that has evidence in it that could put me away for the rest of my life. Like, there's a network of people who unknowingly or knowingly Jarvis would triangulate with to have him do his bidding to try to cover up this thing. He deliberately tried to cover up his phone. He deliberately tried to cover his steps. He deliberately used other people's car. He deliberately used other people. But we didn't really hear him involving Shannon and Annette, which maybe that, maybe they're just not the type to help him as much as the others were, I don't know. But I do think that the more we talk about this, the more we learn more. Like, there's a huge collective out here of people who are all trying to put this thing together. I haven't settled on one thing yet. I'm just still like listening.
Oh, absolutely.
I just feel like it's not always the obvious, and I feel like Shannon and Annette are the obvious low-hanging fruit. They are bad guys. They are responsible, just like in the Adelson case. Donna, Charlie, Wendy, absolutely. Are they the ones that got their hands dirty? No, they're
Right.
not.
Right.
but they're the ones they're going to get the, Charlie got his, Donna's getting hers, and
Yep.
Wendy they're saving for like the cherry on top.
Mhm.
I feel like there's going to be additional co-conspirators. I think they're just trying to figure out who it is. I don't know that it's Annette and Shannon. I think are going to get some other type things. I don't know if they facilitated that specifically. I just don't think they're good enough liars. I don't think the intelligence is there. Um After the fact, yes, but to have actually rage taken out Naziah, I don't know. I don't see that yet, but there could be someone else who's very angry in the bushes waiting to come out, someone who didn't show up for an I think not showing up for police interviews are very telling, you know. And I get you have a right to remain silent, but for a child, you're a mother, why would you not show up, especially if you have nothing to hide? So,
Well, I mean, one aspect of that would be simply because it's smart to never show up. I mean, even though it is this, if the police are calling you down to the police station to question you, there's a chance you could get ensnared in this, in something that the police are again, they're not calling you down to be your friend. So,
Mhm.
now obviously we're free and welcome to absolutely hold that against the person in the public domain. We can't hold it against them in a court of law if that person ever went on trial for
yeah.
remaining silent. But yeah, does it look bad? It does. And certainly you would think she would go down, but potentially the relationship that person has with the police, they may not trust the police. And sometimes that's with good reason, because the police don't always they don't always assess things with as open of a mind either, in terms of how they're going at people. This person may feel like, hey, they're going to come at me with whatever, she's being invited down
Right,
for an
they're gonna
interview.
judge me
But
because I'm letting him have his way with my kids under my roof. Like,
correct.
maybe that person didn't want to be
Well,
exposed for
well,
allowing him
that's
to,
what I'm saying. That
um
there was going to be like fallout. That
right.
it's like they can't, like they would like, if they go down there. When they go down there, there's going to be more that's going to, like, they're going to end up in a situation to where they catch charge. It might not be charges related to Naziah, but when they decide to go talk to the police and the police are starting to look into everything, it's like cases like this and investigations like this have a way of, it's like when your windshield gets hit with a rock and then it spider webs out.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I
Yeah.
think that there
And
was Jarvis's network of women. So remember the one I hate that I don't remember. So I think, is it Davis? Is it so the one with the Nissan Sentra, when she got angry
Okay.
towards the end, like, were you upset because Jarvis had all of these? Well, I was cheating on him too. He was cheating on me, and I was. Do you, like, the network of women? How many people realize, like, oh, you were still seeing him because she could have had another boyfriend? Okay, so you're still seeing him. You let him borrow your car. Then there's the next one who's seeing Jarvis and seeing someone else and seeing someone else. So there was a lot to be exposed. Like, Jarvis was complicated, but these women are complicated too. And a lot of these women have complicated situations with lots of different people involved, different baby fathers, different boyfriends, different
yep,
all kinds of things. So, yes, showing up would have been an exposure because we don't know what they're trying to hide. Was it Jarvis helping themselves to those kids under that roof? Was it some other relationships that she was trying to protect and not be out on the Detroit news dealing with Jarvis, because maybe she's dealing with someone else and that wasn't known. Like, we just there's so much, and that is definitely one of the reasons why I think that this is like a true whodunit,
Mhm.
um which is why people are so captivated by this story. And it's sad. I feel sorry for Naziah. I really, really do. I feel so bad that we don't know where she is. She hasn't been laid to rest.
Yeah.
There are people out there who feel like she's not being looked for, but
Yeah.
I think they're working overtime to solve this, but I don't think they're looking per se for her to be alive. I
No.
mean, because then
no,
why would they have pressed
no, yeah, I
unalive
definitely think.
charges on him? You know what I mean?
Absolutely. Yeah, I think that boat has sailed as far as any
Yeah.
possibility in the authorities' mind. But no, I think what they would, if they're looking for anything, to me, it would be more along the lines of trying to say, is there other people involved in this? Is there other people that need to be held accountable in this? And those are the questions, of course, we probably will never know, because I think the only guy that's going to be coming forward with that information would be Jarvis Butts, and I don't think he's going to. I think he's going to throw shade on, which his brother's already kind of previewing for us.
Uh-huh.
But do you think your brother's just trying to inject reasonable doubt and he's out here fishing fake stories? I mean, I'm not saying his story's not real, Jody. I'm just saying, how is it that he's got all this information and he hasn't, you know what I mean? We don't know if he talked to the police or not, but I would imagine, how does he know all this and he hasn't gone into Detroit to go? Why hasn't anyone told him, hey, don't tell us this, go run tell the police that? Like, they need
It
to
may
know,
well
not
have been
us.
something that came out of an interview that he did with the police beforehand, and it's just coming to light now. But the person that I watched it on, she couldn't verify its authenticity
Yeah,
either. So
I saw it posted too. So I
yeah,
totally, like, it's compelling, but I
yeah,
really didn't speak on it on my channel because I just wasn't sure. And there's so much fake stuff going
I know.
around that I
It's just that
just
I
was like,
listened to it, and I'm
yeah,
like,
I
the
did
more I
too.
listened to it, I thought, hang on a second, that answers that, and that explains that. And that makes sense now because I know that. Like, the more I thought about it, I just went, that actually makes a lot of sense. Like,
Right, but what doesn't make
but
sense to me is that the FBI, Michigan State Police, and Detroit Police don't have that information. Like they're not like, look, we've cracked the case. Jarvis Bus brother came out the bushes and told us everything. We
Well,
have a true confession.
they've still got to,
well,
they've
yeah,
still
but
got
you
to
have to
prove it.
understand that probably what he's relying. I don't think Jarvis Butt's brother knows this from firsthand. This is probably, and again, it would be interesting because the police should be interested in this, because if Jarvis made statements to him, which he's now put on
Yeah,
social media, this
Right.
guy can be interrogated about and
And he
called
needs
as a
to be,
witness to.
yeah.
Because the only place he gets his information from is Jarvis, or was the brother helping him in some way? Like, how does
Okay.
he know?
Yeah. How do you
You
know
know,
everything, sir?
right? Well, that would be a greater question. I think that would be, which is stupid for this guy to come out, because it's like, well, wait a minute, you don't get to just say these things and then not have the question asked. Well, how are you an expert on this? How do you know that Jarvis Butts did what you're saying he did?
Exactly. What?
And if he, and to me, that's a really compelling question that would need to be asked in this instance of, hey, how do you know all this? Like, that's great that you're willing to come and defend your brother like this, but it does not mean that you get to just say this without penalty.
Right.
We need to know. We need to know why and how you're saying this information, because this is, again, he's put it out on the internet, so he's going to be responsible for those comments. So I think
Absolutely.
it'll be interesting to see
mm,
how that
What do
plays out.
you think about when Jarvis's sister testified, like towards the end, how she just like fell apart? Remember they asked a question about the grandmother?
Mm-hmm.
What was that last? Because I was just like, what are they asking her? They were asking her something about the grandmother dying, and she completely fell to pieces.
Yeah, I took that as more of her being upset about the grandmother having passed away, but because they were talking about that it struck me that I was taking that more of like she was upset because the grandmother had passed away, and that was a hard thing that was on
What
Jarvis.
was the question? Was there a suspicious set of circumstances revolving around the grandmother's death? Was it something like that? I was trying to
No,
figure out what was that question.
I believe it happened around the time he was going, like when all this happened. I thought, and
Okay.
that was what brought, and that was something that was because the sister had gone, I believe, to the mechanic shop, if I'm not mistaken. I
Right.
think that was kind of why part of why she was giving that as why they were in communication, and well, beyond him helping her with the car, but that was part of what they were talking about. I think it was more of like her wanting to say this was like this was normal behavior, not that there was no way she would have been involved in anything or someone he would have depended on.
Yeah, no, I didn't think that she would be involved at all. I was just wondering what had her so upset towards the end. There was a question that was asked, and then they did kind of like a sidebar, and the judge got off the bench. They went to the back. They came back. There was some sort of questioning that they were asking. Plus, it seemed like his sister had more to say, but they kept it very narrow what they asked her about.
Hold on, let's pull her up.
What day was it? Do you know?
Oh, I can. I have his sister's
The day of
testimony.
the
Give me one quick
testimony.
second. Yeah, I have the. Let me go to my playlist here.
They asked her what she knew. She said she knew a lot. I feel like she had a lot to say, but they didn't. And I know with the preliminary, they just wanted to focus on proving what they needed to prove to have him
Yeah,
bound
that she
over.
was at. Yeah.
I feel like when the actual trial occurs, wow. Because
Uh
if this is what they had for just the preliminary,
huh.
they have a lot. I feel like they have a lot.
Let's see here. There it is, sister defendant. Here we go. Let me pull this up. All right, I got her testimony up. Let me.
Jody, your hat is hilarious. I'm just gonna like
I had a stream, and
ah!
it was a grift stream I did, and if for every $40 in super
Was it
chat.
super?
Oh,
Oh,
why am I getting
why am
feedback
I getting
now?
feedback now?
Oh, hang on.
Oh, because my headphones died.
Oh.
Hold on a second. Yeah. All right. I'm gonna mute myself. Let me go get another pair. Hold on.
So yeah, every $40 in super chats that I got onto my Temu account and shared the screen, and the chat got to choose and spend $10.
The
And that
hat the hat that you had to wear, that's funny. I'm
I love
like,
it.
is she wearing that hat? Like, am I not supposed to notice what the hat
No,
says?
no,
So I'm
no,
just like, you
no.
know what? I'm gonna take the bait and I'm just gonna acknowledge what has not been, because
It,
I'm new here.
the
I said,
funniest
let me
thing,
just,
if you do that, like they got to choose the search terms, and we had to go right through everything. It was hysterical.
like, look, I
I
is
also
that
got a
the like, oh, she went for 3 hours and she never said a word. So I'm like, you know what? I would be remiss if I did not like say, just acknowledge, okay, the
yeah.
hat is giving. Okay.
I got a hoodie that's like one side is like a creamy color, and the other side is like all completely blood splattered, and it says something like "job done" or something like that, or
Uh-oh. Like a mission accomplished or
yeah,
something.
that's it. Yeah,
Wow.
yeah, we got some funny stuff. Some funny stuff. But yeah,
All
just
right, I'm
searching.
back. Sorry about that, guys.
All right.
All right, let me see here. All right, so witness clarifies. Hold on. Witness explains her reasoning. Witness confirms.
There was another hotel.
Was it?
Chocolate.
Was it at
There's
the end of the? Was it at the end of the testimony?
It was close to the end of her testimony, like the last, I don't know, last 7 minutes or so.
Okay. All right. Got you.
There's the park crest and then there's the travel in, which I think they called the trafficking in, but it's the travel in, which I
Yeah,
think is right across the
what's that?
street, and then there's the park crest,
Park Crest is on the block right behind
the garage,
the
right?
garage. Yep.
Okay, so the park crest and then there's the travel in. I think were two of Jarvis's spots
Haunts.
where he liked to, yeah.
I can hear Connor. Is he entertaining Carson?
Yeah. In the
I can see him doing airplanes. My baby's is all grown up now. I'm just a crazy cat woman now.
All right, let's see here. All right, well, we're good. I can't. Let's see here. So you said it was in. All right.
If you share the screen, maybe Fran will be able to pinpoint it.
Yep.
She just breaks down crying towards the end, and then they take a break. And then when they come back, not take a break, but they called a sidebar. They all left, came back.
Oh,
I
here it
think
is.
they
I
asked her
found it.
one or two more
Yeah.
things, and because I think it was going in a direction. And then of course the defense had their time with her asking, but I don't know. I feel like they kept it very narrow. I don't know what else she has to share, but she obviously had some information.
Hold on, I have it here.
And this might have been when the defense was questioning her,
It was.
actually. Yeah.
Yep, it was. Hold on, let me add this to the scene. All right, here we go. I think this is it.
Yeah.
Oh, wait a minute. There it is.
But if you would like, I would explain to you why I thought these things.
Your Honor,
It's up to you.
can we approach? Yes.
Okay. I think that was close.
Didn't want to get into detail as far as what I knew before the podcast. But if you would like, I would explain to you.
So when they're
why.
saying the podcast, they're talking about 7 Mile Radio. So obviously a lot of people were listening to 7 Mile Radio, and that gave some people the awareness about what was going on and that Jarvis could potentially be involved.
Yeah, because this is when she's breaking down right here. So that's what they were talking about before the breakdown. Because let's see here. We'll go back a little bit here. We'll go back a minute.
I didn't know once I realized that it was a possibility that I saw her. There were several reasons that led me to believe that it was a possibility I was there. And I didn't want to get into detail as far as what I knew before the podcast. But if you would like, I would explain to you why I thought these things. It's up to you.
So I think the defense was trying to infer that what she learned through the podcast.
Correct.
And I think what she's saying is, no, maybe the podcast helped me put some things together.
Yes.
But I knew some things before the podcast, but the podcast like triggered some things. And then she just broke down. He asked her something about her grandmother and something about Jarvis. It was weird. They're gonna all leave and then come back, and then and she's just gonna like break down. It's not on the screen yet. Oh, you're fixing it? I don't think you have it up on the board, Stephen.
What's the sources of these reasons that you have? Are these things that you know?
I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Repeat that.
So these reasons that you were thinking of, what are the sources of them? Is it somebody told you something? Is it something that you saw yourself, you observed, or a coupling of that?
I would say a bit of both. Things that I was told and things that I heard.
Okay. Were there heard from Jarvis?
No.
Okay. Were these things
She's
that you had already
medicated.
known prior
Prior
to thinking that was Messiah that you saw?
I'm sorry, I'm confused on the question.
So are these things the sources that you have for these reasons, are they like things that you have personal knowledge of, or are they things that somebody told you about?
These were things that I was told. I'm trying to understand the question that you're
She on something.
asking me.
Sorry.
My
Let me clarify what's happening there, because I know exactly what's happening. When they went to sidebar, basically what they were trying to get out of her is she said that there were after listening to the podcast, based on things she'd been told, she realized that she saw something that day, and she had a belief that it may have been Naziah. What the prosecutor's trying to establish here is she can't testify to what someone else told her.
Yeah.
But if she has personal knowledge, if it's something she observed, if it's something she herself heard, then she can testify to it. But the prosecutor can't come out and tell her, because the prosecutor's trying to coach her in the questions to say, like that
Yeah.
this is it's basically that it's not hearsay. So
Yeah.
the judge instructed the prosecutor to go out and clarify this, so the judge could then decide whether or not this would be admissible or not. And that's what the prosecutor's trying to fish for.
Mm-hmm.
The witness isn't understanding it because she doesn't know what she's talking about, because
well,
And she's off her face on something.
these are legal things that she's like, what do you mean? And she's thinking that she's trying to come up with the right answer, doesn't want to say
Mm-hmm.
something that she should.
well, I think also the prosecutor, and it's not. I think the prosecution team is really really good. So don't get me wrong, but I just want to preface with, I just think this particular prosecutor does like her technique. She needs to, if I were to give any kind of like, from the peanut gallery advice, is that she really needs to work on her style of asking
Delivery.
questions and understand that she has a complex way of delivering a question. And if you are asking people questions and everybody's confused, like, what did you mean by that? Like, where did you know Jarvis to work? That's what she asked. Like, how about where did Jarvis work?
Yeah.
Or where do you know where Jarvis worked? She would ask questions like, where would you know Jarvis to work? And like I understood what she was asking, but I feel like she has such a odd style of asking a question that is a particular area of opportunity for her. I'm not saying she's a bad prosecutor at all. Um
It's just
she
another
just
version
needs
of
to
if anything.
understand to read the room and ask a ask your question with as few words as possible, as simply as possible, so your people can understand what you're asking. Like
Right.
the way how where would you know Jarvis to work? That doesn't make any sense. Like it's not a well formed question. And
Uh-huh.
she asked other people like one of my observations through the preliminary was that how many times did you notice people saying, what did you, I don't understand. Like
Well,
that should be some feedback from her boss that like you need to be a little more simpler, or you need to be like use less words. Like
what she's doing there is she's trying to preempt an objection from the defense that says that this late, and she's trying to keep the witness from introducing any type of hearsay or stuff. So that's why when she phrases it as, where did you know him to work? The witness can talk about what they know, but they can't talk about what they've learned
What they've
from
been
other people
told.
right.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
or what
Well,
they're being
do you know
told.
where
So,
Jarvis worked? He worked at Frank's. I think they would ask that. Where did Jarvis work? He worked at Frank's.
right. Well,
Did you ever visit him at Frank's? Yes. And he
well,
worked on your car there. Like, I don't know. I guess I'm just it's just feedback. You know what I mean?
yeah.
Like I just
Well,
seemed
I
like
think I
people were confused, and she seemed to be confused and couldn't really answer this question because she didn't really understand what she I just don't think she understood what she was trying to ask her, and it confused her, especially also cuz she's very emotional at this moment.
Well, yes, and what she was trying to do, because a lot of times what prosecutors will try to do, or even really attorneys in general, is they will try to load up the answer inside the question of
Right.
what she's trying to say. And
Right.
this witness, of course, was, like you said, very emotional. And I get the feeling that these prosecutors, or at least the female prosecutor, is relatively new,
Yeah.
because she's trying to like I think it's exactly what you're saying, where she's she's trying to avoid the witness bringing hearsay in, but she's not thinking of how to ask this question to a layperson who doesn't give a damn about hearsay. So it's like,
Right.
you know, the way you're suggesting she asked the question, she should have done that and then followed up and said, okay, where does Jarvis work? If the where does Jarvis work? He works at such a McCall. But the problem is that she's trying to provide the foundation for the question inside the question,
Right.
because the
Right. So
defense
rather than
attorney,
asking 2 questions, she's trying to bake it to 1 or right.
the defense attorney would have, if she just said, where do you work? Where does Jarvis work? The defense attorney would object due to lack of foundation, because she's got to state where does she's got to state. Now, one way she could have said is, do you know you you've observed your brother working. You know, did you go down to your brother's place of work? Yes, I did. And where was that? The whatever body shop. And that was when 2022, where you just established now that he worked there in 2022. So there's a
Right.
better way to ask the questions. She's just inexperienced in how she's doing it. Now, the way she's trying to do it, she's worried about the objection and not about getting a clean
Right.
experience for her witnesses. But I have a feeling these will not be the prosecutors trying this case.
Right. She might be at the table, but she won't be like lead potentially.
No,
They're going to bring out some bigger guns.
well, no, because see, this is the team. The way this works here is these are the prosecutors that will handle the case in the district court. When it goes up to circuit court and they get a team of trial prosecutors, more likely than not, it will go to a more experienced person who would take it to trial.
Yes. Okay.
So what we're seeing here, and again, remember, I highly doubt they thought there was going to be all this attention to to the case. A lot of times, this is a place where you would put a young lawyer or prosecutor to cut their teeth.
Absolutely. I
And
mean, I
that's
think
what
she
we're
did a
seeing.
great job. Both of them did such a good job. It's just, understanding like I just, but can you play that little part? And
Yeah,
then before we go, can we play Annette and Shannon's performance at the press conference?
yeah, yep. I've got it queued up. Yep. I've got that right here.
Oh God, those two.
To believing that it was possibly Nasiah Harris at the shop, correct?
Yes.
Does that help clarify?
Okay.
Because see, even the judge had to translate.
Okay, so those reasons, those things, are those things that you had known before? Are they based on your observations, or?
Well, these were things that I was told. And after asking the questions that I needed to ask, I came up with the conclusion that it was a possibility that Nasiah was the little girl that I saw that day.
Okay, thank you. You said that when you were parked at Jarvis's shop, that it was getting dark out.
Yeah.
Okay. That darkness, is that maybe the reason why the color on the jacket stood out?
Well, the jacket didn't stand out until I was walking into the gas station behind her, because I wasn't really paying attention to what she had on. I just kept seeing her get in and out of the truck, going in the gas station and coming back to the truck, and that's what caught my attention.
Okay, so the movement is what attracted you to it at first?
Yeah.
Okay.
So this might be closer to the end when they excuse her. So if you back up a little bit when defense was crossing her. So further back, I think that's when they stepped out. She was sitting, when they were sitting and waiting for them to come back from the sidebar, she broke down. Yeah.
Yeah,
So I
right
think
here.
right around there.
Right here. Okay.
Yeah. You see, I wonder what that question was. Can you go back and see what that question? Because he asked the question and she lost. She was like, no, she lost it. Maybe they're still waiting at the. Oh, she's answering.
No. 2 months.
Were you and Jarvis raised by your grandmother?
Yeah, what was that?
Was
Were
it?
you and Jarvis raised by your grandmother?
Yeah.
Okay.
That. Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
And then
And were there some events surrounding her death that related to your relationship with Jarvis that impacted some things?
Did you hear that?
yes, she was pissed after this, and then
Yeah.
she breaks down crying. So were there some events revolving around her death that made you and Jarvis?
No.
Relationship breakdown.
No. 2 months.
Were you and Jarvis raised by your grandmother?
For the most part.
She's like, well, you go,
And were
bitch.
there some events surrounding her death that related to your relationship with Jarvis that impacted some things?
No.
Something's up there.
But if after that, just wait a second, she's going to totally break down.
And
So
she's
they know
There was
something.
kind of there's another reason. There's a different reason that you thought that it was Nazai that you had saw that day. When you were starting to compile, or when you
so yeah. So I this refreshed my memory. What they were trying to do there, because I remember when I was watching it, what they were trying to do there was the defense was trying to suggest. Was trying to suggest that that the reason she came forward with information against Jarvis was because of the grandmother had died 2 months before,
Mm-hmm.
and that their relationship had broken down,
Mm-hmm.
and now she has this independent memory because she didn't come up with this memory until like a month or so or before this. She's relatively new with the memory, and the defense was trying to paint it as that
You're only
they
testifying because you're pissed at him.
that you're pissed at him. And then the state comes in here and the state's trying to clean this up by saying, no, there's another reason. And that's because you were watching this podcast, and this podcast helped you start piecing together things that you had witnessed and observed. And then you came up with, and then this caused you to realize that you had seen Isaiah Harris at his shop.
Yeah, because he told her it was Cordell's niece or something, didn't he?
Yes.
Mm.
Mm-hmm. So, wow. So yeah, so much information. I feel like more and more is gonna. I mean, it's just the tip of the iceberg. There's so much more going on and coming out.
I just realised after all that IT stuff around, I didn't even play the introduction video that I made for you.
For me?
About you. Yeah.
Oh my God.
All right, let's see here.
I would love to see it when we close. I had no
that.
idea. Well, I'm honored. Thank you.
That's okay.
All right, here is the
crocodile tears.
Yep.
I'm asking anyone that knows anything about my granddaughter, please contact the police department. She's been missing for a very long time.
I don't see any
Naziah
tears.
is a very sweet child. This is not of her character. We've been looking for her. We've been passing out flyers. We've been calling people. We've been knocking on doors. We have done some of everything. And we're asking anybody that has any information, I don't care who it is, please come forth, contact the police department. Her life could be in danger. Please call the police department. I want my baby home. And I'm asking in the name of Jesus, and I stand on my faith that he's going to bring her home. But if we all can come together and help find her, I'm telling you, we can make a difference. She's been missing. She's been gone too long. I can't sleep. I can't eat. Just bring her home, please. That's all I'm asking. Thank you.
I'm just questioning that
One
the
more,
city of
one more
that the
community.
city officials hadn't yet realized that Shannon's
I
baby
would like to
father
say that
was a
this is
complete
serious.
child molester, and
Mm-hmm.
they allowed her to sit there at the police conference. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I'm just shocked that they hadn't even realized that piece, that component yet.
Hmm. Well, I know.
Like, why was Shannon in the frame and her baby father is a complete PDF?
And he was in jail at that by that time too.
A mess.
I know. It's ridiculous. I, and the thing that I think is comical is she's sitting there talking about how she can't sleep and eat. Yeah, she was sleeping just fine when she found out she
Yeah.
was missing.
Right.
That's
Yep.
nuts.
Not
All,
one tear. Not one wet patch. Nothing.
all right, Jody. So I guess before we wrap this up, let's where is the intro tape? Is it in? Well, you can go ahead and you know where
You
it's at.
guys are
Oh,
thank
the
you. Thank you for having me. I just
it's
want to
not
say
that
that
it's.
first.
Thank you.
Thank you
I
for
just
having me.
grabbed
This
some
was so
bits
much
and
fun.
pieces from
Invite me back again. This was fun.
Absolutely.
I love
Yay!
talking out theories and
Yeah.
all of that. This
Yeah.
was fun. You
Absolutely.
guys
That's what
are
this is all
amazing. I
about.
appreciate
Yeah.
y'all.
Yeah.
All right, where did
Absolutely.
I hide it?
I was going to say,
It's hidden in the
When
back of.
Jody sent me the email, I didn't know it was going to be this quick. I was like, "Yeah, sure. Thanks for inviting me." And she's like, "Oh, it's like in 2 days." I was like, "Oh my god."
It was one of those last minute things, and I'd been through your stuff, and I'm like, for some reason, I don't know why, I thought you were in Detroit as well.
No,
um,
I'm in North
and
Carolina.
and I oh, there it is there. It's not that exciting, but you can watch it. That's a great photo. Oh, not going to be quick.
It's the parade of glasses and styling my braids.
You've got a few different.
Oh wow, okay. I'm smiling from ear to ear.
I
Thank you so much.
love that. I love that. Because that is the crux of things right there. If
Absolutely.
you don't believe that you don't deserve and you're not worthy, you will allow these predators to take advantage. And that's what we
Absolutely.
need to teach our youth.
Absolutely.
Simple as that.
I see you've got a couple
Absolutely.
people in in North Carolina. Been absolutely great having you here. Oh, thank you so much. Is it Teresa?
Yes.
Teresa, thank you so much. And Elizabeth.
They
Yeah,
are
you guys,
lovely.
yeah, this was fun. I love talking cases. So yeah, I appreciate the offer to be able to come and talk to you guys. And I
Well,
really
you're doing a couple of the same as
yeah.
you're doing the Soto. Yeah,
I
there's a
would love
few.
to come back and talk Stefan Starnes. I do have a lot of information. I don't know what you have on your channels. But I did get a couple of those big downloads from Kissimmee. So a lot of that audio, I need to go like today, one of my assignments is I need to find the audio of the music teacher. The music teacher who has since been arrested, the Italo Raphael Bonini, the music teacher at Madeline School who just got arrested on PDFing, being a
Oh,
PDFer with some kids in Maryland. So it's
Wow.
almost like on the level of To Catch a Predator. So he's got like some federal he had a federal investigation. And this was a kid at this was a teacher at Madeline School.
Wow.
And he was interviewed by the police. And I don't think there's anything related to him with her case, but just the proximity
mhm.
of all of this going on is pretty crazy.
Yep.
So
Yeah.
You don't realize how many are right under your nose.
right under your nose, right
Mhm.
blending in. Absolutely.
Absolutely. You got to always be on alert, and you
Yep.
just never know.
And
You
he got
never
a
know.
continuance, so he's not going back to court for another month or so. I think he might have a month or two to go back.
Because that case is in Florida, right? Because
Yeah.
that'll go on for years. I mean, unfortunately.
Well, and it's 2 cases. It's the CSAM case and then
Yes,
the
and
actual
then the
unalive
yeah.
case. So
Well, that's coming up soon, isn't it? The first one.
it was supposed they did have a preliminary hearing, but they asked for a continuance for a month because they hadn't seen some evidence, the defense that they were planning to argue, so they gave a continuance for like another month
Yeah.
from now.
In
So
the way it work, the way they do it down in Florida, especially if there's legal issues to met out, it could take a couple years. I mean, they're keep setting it, and then they're keep moving it,
right.
Okay.
and they just that's just unfortunately that is just the problem down in Florida is they just take forever to. But because also too, Florida is one of the states that allows for witnesses to take depositions in criminal cases.
Mhm.
A lot of states don't do that. Florida does. So they have a right to go depose the witnesses, and that takes time because before you go to trial, they have depositions
Mhm.
of every witness that's going to come in. That's why in the Boone case, they were taking depositions of witnesses during the case
Right.
that were coming up, and it's really so.
So someone was saying that they think there should be better protect the kids in school. It's unfortunate because you know what, when someone hasn't been yet convicted and
Yep.
you've got someone like this guy Bonini who was like young in his career, he hadn't been caught. Now he's documented. He has an open case. They have investigation on him. He's not getting a job anywhere anytime soon.
No, but he
And
wasn't on their radar
he
beforehand.
wasn't on the radar
No.
because a lot of
Yeah.
these people stay under the radar
Yeah.
until they get caught. So until that something gets documented on them. So it's unfortunate, but
Yep.
you know. But yeah, you guys, thank you so much for having
I
me
will
Absolutely.
today. This
Thank
admit,
you
was
for
so
I'll
much
coming.
confess,
fun.
I will
Yeah.
confess, I had to Google what bougie meant.
Oh, okay. And what did
All
you
right.
come up with? What was the definition you found?
I think it was something to do with people trying to be better than they are, or
Really?
something like that. Or yeah,
I think so
people that pretend
maybe
to be rich or high class when they're not. There you go.
so well, I guess that would be kind of like well, I'm not a dictionary. I would say bougie, or like French for bourgeoisie, I guess was more like someone who was a higher class or caste or something like that.
Mhm.
I think today there is people use the word not with the actual definition.
Yeah,
I think it's closely related, but I think that's what it was. But yeah, just a little
never heard of.
just a little refined approach to having these conversations. Really, anything else. It's just a YouTube name.
Well, it was lovely meeting you and lovely having you on. Thank you
Thank
Yes,
so
it
you
much
so
for
much
was.
for
Thank you for
having me. I
coming
especially
on.
at
appreciate it.
short
Absolutely.
notice.
Yes. And sorry for the technical difficulties to get
Oh,
Oh,
are you
that's
started.
kidding
right.
me?
My
I
bad.
have them every single day from Mike being disconnected,
Oh,
all of this stuff, like everything. It's just being live is people don't realize like
Hmm.
we're literally running television stations
yeah.
and
From our
radio
house.
Yeah.
Yep.
stations
Yes. And
on
how many
a
things you got going at the one time? It's just
absolutely it's a lot.
at
Yep.
So
5 o'clock in the morning, 5:30 in the morning. Yeah.
right.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So, but yeah, thank you guys so much. I appreciate it. It was so
No,
much fun.
Absolutely.
you're
Yes. Thank you.
welcome.
All
Okay.
right.
Thank
All
you,
I
right.
don't
Colin.
know how to
Cheers,
drop
Fran.
down. I think. How do I drop down?
Let's
I
see
can
here.
get you.
Bye, guys.